I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is Thursday night, and that means it's time for the Nicaragua Live. And we have the microphone back, which I believe is working. And I hope people can tell me right away if the audio is working. So we're going to ask right away, find out, but my charts say it's working. So I'm hoping that it works. I don't actually have a quick way to test, which I hate that there isn't a better way to test, but there's not. But no one's on. So, Luke, hey, can you hear me? That's the first question. Is there good audio? Because we have the microphone back. Yes! All right, we are working. Whew. By the way, Luke, you'll be happy to know that within reach, right here on my desk, is this. Had it in Managua the other day, doing my charging. All right, I'm so glad this microphone came back. I just had to unplug everything, reboot everything, and let it sit for 2 weeks. And it reset itself and started working. Magic. Oh, what a day. We're gonna wait. Oh, we got 7 people on already. Wow. Awesome. Janet can hear me too. Sweet. And you should be able to hear me far better than you've been able to hear me for the last several weeks. So I did not get a chance to test anything until 5 minutes ago. Gale7RRC, hello, Scott from Eastern Washington. Hello. So, we got lots of people. Man, people are coming on fast. This is great. Everybody's been waiting. They're like, he's super late. And we missed last week, so I've got a buzzing ear. It does not like battery charger with the pretty little display. I really do like the display. Like, this is, it's actually got an LCD screen. And this is from Luke, for those who don't know. Luke brought this for me, and when I was in Matagalpa, and it charges 3 GoPro 13 batteries, which I have a lot of, right? So it works out perfectly because I have so many. I have to have them numbered. I don't think you can see it. We're gonna. Can it find my hand? No, it sees the face. It sees the face. But anyway, they're numbered. I'll put it back here. That's a number 5. What do I got here? Probably a 3, right? I've got lots of batteries. So I have a couple triple chargers, but this one has a little LCD display on the front, so it gives me the percentage of each battery and what's going on. It's really nice. Larry from Ontario, Canada is here. Hey, Larry, how's it going? And Tony's here, Black Magic. We got, wow, people are just hopping on tonight. I should do this every other week. No, I'm kidding. I'll do it every week, but I should do this every other week because apparently it gets people a little bit anxious, like, where's the show? Vince is here. Hey, Vince, how's it going? What an evening. Oh, Luke says the retro Apple hub for the Mac Mini ships in 2 months. All right, cool. Brent's here. Hola, hola. I definitely want to check that out. I am kicking around an idea. I've got a cool computer project that you would appreciate, Luke, that I'm kicking around. But I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet because I'm still kicking it around. Let's move this just ever slightly closer. Now that it's working, I want to have this beautiful orange microphone in the display to match the face in the background. Oh, how's everybody's week been? We actually had rough one here just today was rough. That's why we had to hold this off. So a friend was borrowing our car because his dog was killed today. Someone poisoned his dog, and he went. He was going to take him to the vet because the dog was not acting great. And when he got there, the dog had died, and it was horrible. And he had only pulled over for a second to grab the dog and go to the vet. Had no idea, but it was only there for 30 seconds. And a big truck decided, we're pretty sure intentionally, to try to push our car out of the way and just hit the car. With a big truck, but because he was there, ran out and caught the guy, and so I just got back from the police station. They said it should be no problem there, but obviously nothing compares to the loss of his young dog, who was very sweet, and my kids knew, and his little kids knew the dog, and it's just a wonderful dog, and horribly poisoned. So tragic. And so everyone's super sad about that. And then the car got hit. So we had to deal with that in the what? And so everybody has been running around dealing with these tragedies this evening. Other than that, the week has been okay. But how's your guys' week going? Everyone here in the house is healthy and doing well, other than those things. Tusk is here. Hey, Scott, good to see you. How are you doing tonight? I started reading the memoirs of Catherine the Great this afternoon after finishing Robert Macy's excellent biography of her. Cool. Next, you'll be reading Anna Karenina. Is the secret computer plan have anything to do with Jellyfin episode? It does not. That would be cool, though, but no. Ooh, more people. This is amazing. So many people on. It is here. Hello, everyone. Big news this week that the Cerveceria, the brew pub in San Juan del Sur, has closed or is in the process of closing. And De Humo, the big steakhouse here in Laborio, LEòN, which is basically downtown, has announced that they are closing in a few days. So, I mean, those are very far apart, right, in different parts of the country, but major anchor businesses for their communities closing up, which was kind of a theme for today's earlier video that I barely got out because I was running out the door. But surprising just how many, because Don Tomatillo had made the comment that he felt like tourism was declining. We haven't seen official numbers to know one way or another. And of course, official numbers only track certain things, and there's more factors, like maybe 4,000 people come, but they come for half the amount of time that they used to, right? Or they spend less. Like, there's a lot of different factors that will change. Or maybe they don't get out as much. They come, but they stay in buildings, right? Like, but we're just not seeing the foreigners out and about the way that we used to at all. Brent says, condolences to your friend. As a kid, we had our dog poisoned. Oh, really terrible childhood memory, actually. Yeah, I bet. When I was 8, my dog was killed by the UPS truck. I've probably never used UPS because of that. I have used UPS, but there's probably a reason why I always used other carriers more. That was probably it. Subconscious, right? Just, you have to pick something. Vince says, is dog poisoning common? And sadly, it is. There's a culture of caring for dogs and caring for pets that's starting to happen, but it's a new thing. There's a very difficult cultural shift that has to happen. And thank goodness, just last year, less than a year ago, Sheinbaum, Madam President in Mexico, signed the Animals with Sentience Act in Mexico, making Latin America the most animal-aware region of the world, passing Europe, which is huge because it's pretty much just the Germany, Switzerland, Italy group that have the similar thing. But it's it's going to take a while to get to other parts of the region, and poorer countries are struggle with it more. And so animals are often mistreated here. They don't get priority, and when that happens in one space, it exacerbates other problems. So that is an area where the police do not treat harming someone's dog with the veracity that they should. If you catch someone trying to harm your dog, taking a skillet to their face, one that's full of hot oil and at full swing, you should be able to be like, oh yeah, his skull's crushed in. Oh, what happened? How could this? He was going after his dog. Oh, say no more. Right. That's how it should be. Not it's just a dog. Right. That's not how it should be. So that is changing, and we're seeing more clinics and more vets and more people having pets and keeping pets in the house and letting their dogs sleep in their bed and treating them more like family. Like, we're seeing this trend happen, but it's a long, slow thing. And in places like Mexico, right, and in places like Germany, right, they have programs where, like, students, like kids, elementary school, get how to take care of your animal, how to respect your animals. And that's something they start young. So they have this, like, constant, animals are our friends. Animals are to be, respected and taken care of and loved. And that is something that we need to get into the culture now, so that we have a generation of a different approach to things. Same as we need to do with littering, right? Those things are things that most places have to change. And so if you do have a dog, it is very important that this is why we say, right, when people say, why do we have high walls? We're like, because we have dogs, right? Like, we flew our dogs here on private planes, right? Well, one private plane. Our dogs are our babies. We also have children, but our dogs are our babies. And all it takes is one person who hates you or one person who thinks it's funny. And I grew up in an area of New York where, we had this as a problem when I was a kid. Going to school, I went to school with people who would laugh about poisoning people's animals. It's a thing that you're going to run into anywhere. But in the U.S., people are more wary of doing it, right? Because the penalties are potentially much higher. Not just if the police catch you, there's also you may get caught with poison and someone has a gun, right? And then it's up to your corpse to narrate the narrative. Oh no, I wasn't there to poison the family. I was there to poison their pets. Good luck getting that across in your grave, right? So the fear of retribution is much higher in the U.S., so you see much less of it. So it is something that if, especially as a foreigner, which he was not, but as a foreigner, you really want to make sure that you keep your animals isolated. Don't let random people feed them. Don't let them eat things randomly off the street. Don't let them go find their own food. Do not let them wander randomly about. There's a lot of, now in this case, we know the dog was poisoned, but a lot of times poison things will be left out, not necessarily intending to kill anybody. And our little dog recently ate rat poison, and clearly no one was trying to poison him, right? You've seen our walls. But it was, everyone knows, we simply Nolan was here, and they just casually threw rat poison about, which they're not allowed to do. We don't poison our mice here. But they did it, and our dogs found it, and we're like, what is this stuff? And all of a sudden, thank goodness, Ida, our housekeeper, was like, that's rat poison. And we're like, this is clearly the dog's been eating it. And there are cures for that, right? And we were able to get him to the vet and save him. And this is just 2 months ago? Like, this is recent. But it was, people are just casual about poison, right? Oh, I might kill the family pets, but as long as it kills a rat, who cares, right? That mentality that you don't have to be careful is enough to be a problem. Right, and since that happened, I was in the kitchen and found rat poison in our cupboards with our dishes. Like, not right where it would fall on a dish, but certainly in a place that should not ever be, right? Not for the humans, not for the dogs. And it's like, why is there so much rat poison sitting around our house, right? We've lived here for years, and obviously we never put down poison, right, for anything. So yeah, there's a lot of both intentional and accidental poisoning. You need to be very careful with animals. But as long as you're taking care of your animals, there's great veterinary care, and our dogs are, very happy here and well taken care of. Chris says, you have talked about people getting dental work in Nicaragua. Could you do an episode with your dentist? I'm supposed to. She's actually supposed to come on the live stream. It hasn't worked out. A lot of that is because Marcela does my coordination for a lot of that stuff. And she's obviously been in hospital for quite some time. She actually was going to try to make it tonight. She's in Managua. It's hours away, but she wanted to be on the live stream and tried to make it. But the radiation machine, there's only one at the clinic. So she waits all day hoping for her turn, which, I mean, it's just hoping that it's early. And today, this is 30 minutes ago. She's like, they still haven't called me. And then she's like, they just told me that the machine is broken. We can stay and hope that it works, but it may not even tomorrow. Her next she's already missed today's radiation therapy, and there's a really good chance that it's not going to be running tomorrow. And so she's trying to figure out what to do with that. But she wanted to come out here and be on the show. But so she does a lot of that coordination. But my dentist and our orthopedic surgeon, both I'd like to get on the show. Our surgeon does not speak English, but our dentist most certainly does. I have two dentists that I could get on the show, both of whom speak English. But I know our main dentist, that's my kid's dentist, they saw him this week. She speaks English very clearly and is excited to be on the show. So, and she's been on the show a number of times as far back as 2021, but in like 2021, she was like a salsa dancer in the background. And she has been on a few times on Nicaragua because she's a singer in town. she's on things, but never as my dentist. So yeah, definitely want to get her on. She'll have a lot of things that she can answer. I think it'll be a really good episode. But when we finally schedule with her, I want to do a bunch of promos so we can get a lot of people on with a lot of dentist questions and push for that. But absolutely, Chris, for sure. Brent says, anyway, the AV tonight are both 10s. Awesome. I managed to make sure all the lights were on, and sadly, I'm not on the lens. I wish I was on because that one, shattered. But the pod mic is back. So yay! And all I did was let it sit for a really long time and it reset itself. Luke says my dad has lost 6 cats in 2 months to tegu lizards. Tegu lizards? I don't know those lizards in Southwest Florida. Well, that's very sad. Tom says, are there many rescue shelters for animals near LEòN? Not a ton of rescue shelters. I'm told of a big one. I mean, how many do you need? It's not number that really matters. It's, do we have capacity? And I don't know if that's true. If we do have, I don't know that it's true that we have capacity, but we do have multiple. In Guadalupe, really close to where this happened actually, is a shelter. And of course, Jillian, who is on the show on a semi-regular, or on the live stream chat on a regular basis, runs the big shelter down in Las Piñitas, and my veterinarian company provides the veterinary software for her clinic. We're actually planning on doing a live broadcast this week. I believe it's Monday, the 1st, September 1st, from that rescue clinic. So it's a rescue shelter and community clinic. Like they gather the street dogs and do spay and neuter clinics, that kind of stuff. And they'll get street dogs and raise money and give them cancer treatments and help locals with getting cancer treatments for their dogs and stuff like that. So we'll get Jillian on sometime soon, both to try to raise some money for their clinic, but also to have her talk about it and what they do. And if anyone's a veterinarian out there, let us know. We are the makers of Vetastic. My dad is here. My dad says, hi, Aunt Gail and I are here. My Aunt Gail is on. That is so cool. He had said that they might be on. So my dad lives in New York. My aunt lives in Ohio, but she's up there visiting. I don't know if she's passing through or that is her destination, but they are watching from Geneseo, New York. Hopefully with some pizza or Aunt Cookie subs. Living abroad with Eric. Sorry to hear of the dog situation, Sam. Super disappointing attitude, much of LATAM. It's true, but at least it's turning around, right? Brazil and Mexico now have really strong animal protection laws, and with the majority of South America with Brazil and the majority of Central and North America with Mexico, both regions are at over 50% of all people are under stringent animal protection laws. It's the ancillary, secondary markets, the Central American countries, Panama and Colombia and those that are playing catch up. But at least the big ones have gotten there, and that gives a lot of momentum to the region. So it gives us a lot of hope, right, for the future, but it is a sad state of affairs right now, which is another reason. The more expats we can get, so this is the thing, if you're an expat and you love animals, coming in and showing a North American, like, animals are our children thing really makes changes. Like, that's one of those things that I think a lot of people don't think about. They're like, oh, I don't want to be there because I don't like the way animals are treated. That's legit. But you can make a real difference because when, people have seen my dogs, right, on the show. We flew our dogs on a private jet. We would never do that for ourselves, but we did it for our dogs. We rent this house specifically with all of its space for the dogs. We have the high wall and all the double gate security. Do I need double gate security for me? No, but for my dogs. What if my dogs escape the first gate, which has happened? Then they could get out the second gate. So they have their own security. We have staff. If we ever go anywhere, our staff stay with our dogs. Our dogs are never alone. They're never locked up. They're never alone. They always have someone watching them, right? We have a vet right down the street. We have a secondary vet right down the street. They do house calls for our dogs, right? Like my dogs have never spent the night not sleeping in someone's bed, right? Ever. Most nights they take the pillows. They get the priority on everything. They have their own space for everything, right? When people come and see us with our animals, they're like, what? But then over time, they're like, you have such a great relationship with your animals, right? And so you see people not necessarily then have the same relationship with their animals, but you do see, right, like my housekeeper, right, and Marcela as examples, right? Marcela had animals, she loved animals, took care of them, never let them sleep in her bed, but after, staying with my dogs, she would come when we're not here. Sometimes she stays. The dogs sleep with her, and we're like, they have to, right? And she's like, at first. Now she's like, that's like her favorite thing. When she's not feeling well, she'll stay here in our guest room, and Clive knows who's sick, and he'll go to whoever's not feeling well, and he'll snuggle with them. And so she knows she can come here when she's not feeling well, and Clive will come be her companion. And that's something that she really appreciates. And now her new dog, that's Betty, that's been on the show, will sleep in bed with her all the time. Won't sleep anywhere else. And so that has changed. And Ida is the same, right? Ida, sometimes when Marcela's not available, she stays here with the dogs. So she has to sleep with the dogs. So she got used to doing that. So she went home, and she has several dogs. Now they sleep in her bed at her house, right? Those little bits, everybody who's here showing how much we care about animals, how much we respect them and want them to be happy. People are like, wow, I can feel good being happy about my animals' well-being, right? And it really does make a difference by example. Benoit Ross says, we flew our 3 cats too. Very cool. Luke says, those people who abuse animals in their youth end up on the 5 o'clock news 40 years later. The break in the thing made it that I just couldn't read what it was. Yeah, it's true. That is right. What's number one sign of criminals? People abusing animals. Larry's here. Watch your earlier video today. Always riveting entertainment. Which steakhouse closed? They didn't close today. They announced like yesterday that they were closing, but De Umo, which was really good. Right. Anna Jones, I'll be here for a little. It's getting close to my bedtime. Oh, sorry that we had to start so late tonight. I want to be Scott's dog in my next life. My best friend was down here with me in 2019. And she made the comment, now this is about street dogs in San Juan del Sur, but she's like, I'd rather be a street dog in San Juan del Sur than live back home in Texas. But mostly because they live on the beach. Backyard Bandit with the update. What's the update with the Managua Bypass Road? It was approved in 2018. It goes from Ticuantepe to Carretera Sur. Oh, that bypass road. I honestly don't know. There's so many bypasses being built. The western bypass was built 2017, 2018. I'm not sure. When I got here in 2021, no, it was probably built in 2020, now that I say that. When I was really driving around in 2021, everyone was raving about how new it was, and it's still just a beautiful road. So probably around then. And now the North Road is just about finished. So I don't know. I don't know about the Ticuantepe bypass. That makes a lot of sense. That will do a lot for that. That'll really change that region. I love Ticuantepe. I hope it doesn't do negative things for it, just shifting traffic around. But that's such a cool region, right? So, yeah, sadly, I don't know anything backyard. Brent says, do you think $3,000 US would be plenty for movable furnishings for unfurnished rentals for a single person, small household? It'd only add a little over $50 monthly cost of use for 5 years. Yeah. I think $3,000 is pretty good. If you remember, we did that one person, one like studio apartment on extreme budget, but how much different can it be? He had a fridge. He had like all the things that you would normally have, and I feel like he came in under $2,000 total. It's been a while. Marcela may remember what the exact budget was, but we added it all up, and he didn't have a ton of things. It was like a fridge, a toaster oven, I don't know if he had a range top. Did not have a stove, which if it was just me, this is a little bit expensive, but get the Ninja air fryer. Worth it. Trust me. Does so many things. Works great. A traditional toaster oven would be fine, but the Ninja air fryer, it's worth the extra $50. But a couple of things like that, like those basics, a range top, that's like $50. An air fryer, it's like $200 for a really good one. Fridge, few $100. You're going to need, a couple chairs. You might want a couch. You need a bed. Do the standard bed here where it's the box springy thing with the built-in feet. That's what everyone does. It's a good combination of things. 3,000 should be able to get you into a pretty comfortable position. You'll still be like, there's a lot of things I don't have, but wouldn't be bad, right? Especially like so TVs. A TV and your fridge. Those are going to be some of your mattress. Those are like your big ticket items. TVs are going to range from 200 to 800 depending on how much you want to spend. The one I've gotten here is definitely 200 or less. It's pretty weak, but I just hook it up to an old laptop that has a broken screen and, works great. It's my screen right there. We do have a couple bigger ones that we paid more for. TVs are a lot more here than in the U.S. You can order from the U.S., though, if you want to wait. So there's some stuff like that. Larry says, that's a good place. That may be good for Desperados. Yes, except Larry, you forget the Desperados also closed this week. So that's 2 steakhouses in a week that closed here. So that's the 2 highest end, the highest end in the city and the highest end outside the city. Jalisco is still open, last I knew, which is recent. But they're up in Fatima, so they're not downtown. And there's plenty of places that do steak downtown, but as steak houses, I believe Carnivoro closed, but I don't know. It may just be that it felt like it went out of business and everybody gave up. Antigua might be considered a steakhouse. They're doing okay, as far as I know. I gotta be careful. I'm doing the same thing that everyone else does, right? Oh, I go to that place. They're doing great. And then they close, right? We heard about so many places, so many people. Oh, that place is so busy. They must be doing great. And then they close and they're like, yeah, 5 years, been losing money, can't do it anymore, right? Time after time after time. I know directly some of the biggest, constantly packed, really expensive places downtown, they're losing money, right? No, not Gecko's. We all know Gecko's is making money. But short of that, anybody you mention and say, I'm sure they're making money, I'm sure you're not actually sure. Some of them are, right? Sestao probably making money, but a lot of those places. I thought Desperados was just closed for remodeling. The building is closed for remodeling. The steakhouse is closed. There's no steakhouse coming back. Twins is good. You're right, Larry. Twins is the good one here. I meant to mention that. I did not mean to skip it. 1, because they're here in Sutiava, and 2, they watched the live stream. So... But we do like Twins. Really nice venue. That's my favorite place to go as a steakhouse because it's close and I love the location next to the square, and it's air conditioned. Desperados will come back, but it will not come back as a steakhouse. Simple answer is there's every single steak that's sold on the beach. If it was all sold all in just the evening and you only had to open for that, it's not enough to pay a staff to cook it. You just can't. There's just not enough. There's so little demand. And this is something that we learned is that people hate eating on the beach. They really do. They don't want to sit on the beach and eat. The only beachfront places that are doing okay in any way whatsoever aren't really on the beach. They may own the beachfront, but they're not putting the people to eat on the beachfront. They're doing it towards the road. And you have to have a spot that's designed for that. And the places that are designed to put you on the beach are great for during the day. But guess what? During the day, people are sitting out on the water. They're not spending money. And so the ability to sell steaks on the beach is basically zero. That's why no one's doing it, right? Should have taken a cue from the complete lack of steakhouses on the beach for the entire coast. But there really isn't. And we discovered why, right? People were constantly like, oh, love going out there, worth the trip. But as soon as night fell, everyone has the same reaction. There's a couple things. If you're going to stay on the beach, you don't want to be on the beach once it's dark. When the sun's going down, absolutely. But that's not when people eat dinner. They eat dinner when it's dark, almost always, especially here in the tropics, because you don't have that half the year where it's still sunlight at dinner time. No, it's always dark at dinner time. So you're sitting out, you watch the sunset go down, you might have a drink, but as soon as that sun's down, it actually gets kind of creepy. sitting in that pitch darkness on the water. There's no lights. There's no city out somewhere. There's no twinkling lights afar away. If you're thinking, like, so if you're in like San Juan del Sur, if you're at, for example, you're at Tuanis, they can see the beach for most of their view. There's things to look at. It's not darkness. It's dark, but it's not darkness. It's actually really beautiful. If you are, thinking about European beaches and like all these places, you're like, oh, but people love being on the beach. I think they like being where there's stuff to see at night on the beach. And having lived on Crete in the Mediterranean, right, and in Spain, and I've lived in Italy on the Mediterranean, one thing that was universal, nobody ever went to the beaches except in the middle of the day. And even that wasn't that popular. But going out and being on the beach at night, no. Nobody wanted to do that. Not popular at all. You wanted to be in. People just don't feel comfortable being on dark water at night, which is a real surprising revelation, right? But I know from my own experience watching everybody leave, but also sitting out there and going, I don't particularly like this, right? During the day, I'm like, oh, beautiful ocean, waves and this, but at night it's just this eerie darkness because there's nothing out there. It's just dark. And so you come to the road, and then all the restaurants that are along the road, where you walk down the road and you can see what the people are doing, they're wide open on the road and not on the beach, are busy, and all the places on the beach are empty universally. And you're like, and even people like, so Mike owns, almost everyone here knows Mike Lopez's place in Contiki. He owns places on the water, and he owns a restaurant across the street. As soon as it's night, there's nothing on the water, but that place is busy. Maybe not packed, but it's busy, right? Every single person gravitates off the beach at night. And so having a restaurant that's designed around dinner in a position that is not desirable at dinner time is a pretty big killer. Luke says, by the way, did Marcela get some books downloaded yet? She did not, because she has not gotten here. She has no way to do anything with it while she's there. And she was supposed to, like I said, she was supposed to be here tonight and didn't make it. Hopefully she will be here tomorrow, and we'll get her loaded up and ready to go. She's got it all charged and ready, and she's like set it up, but she hasn't got any books on it yet. But she's very excited. Super, super excited. Larry says, I thought Desperados was closed. Oh, no, we said that. Brent said, your place on the beach that we met up at? Yes, that one. That's too bad. I enjoyed the one meal I had there. Yeah, I mean, we still have the venue. The venue's not going anywhere. It's not going to be a steakhouse. Bad idea. It was, we gave it the college try. We didn't build it as a steakhouse. It had been a steak, we should have also learned from the fact that it was a steakhouse previously and didn't make it. And having been owned by a chef for many, many years, and not being able to keep it open, could have been a tip-off, right? Probably should have learned from that. But we gave it a try, and we kept it open much longer than he ever did, and did better than he ever did. So, I mean, we learned some things from it. It's not worthless, but trying to take, what we discovered with it and usefully apply those lessons to business to make it not so such a bad idea. All right. I actually have to work in the background, so please ignore me as I work. I put solar lights to light the beach. So you can't do that, Anna. Some places do, but so there's a number of problems. Well, one is we're a turtle beach, so putting lights on the beach is a no-no at night, because that causes a distraction. So you can, but you have to have special lights and keep them really dim. We do like to have a certain amount of light along the beach, but nobody lights the beach at night to protect the turtles. So that's just a nature of this is just not something you can do. Also, each place is only so big, and so having one place that goes out and puts solar lights on the beach actually doesn't do a whole lot to fix that, right? Because you're not lighting out on the water. You're lighting the beach, which actually looks awful in most circumstances. And so people really don't want a lit beach other than it provides for some safety. That part is good. But the if you think about like what lights on the beach look like, what that actually feels like when you're sitting in the places, people don't want to sit in a place and have lights shining on sand. They want twinkling lights coming out from the water. They want it lit that way, and it's not something you can do until everyone does it, right? And for us, we're flat beach, so there's nothing out there to do anything. So it's certainly something we've all considered, and keeping it dark is kind of the best thing. You don't want it absolutely dark. There's like this in between. You want a little bit of light, because when it gets too dark, it does invite crime. So we do try to avoid that. But beyond that, Brent says, I see what you mean about the nighttime vibe there. I was surprised how things shut down there very shortly after dark. Oh, I forgot to say the other thing. So one thing is no one wants to be on the beach. So anyone who's going to stay on the beach goes to the road. The other thing is that driving the beach road home is outrageously dangerous, and even the one that's close here in LEòN, it's moderately far into town. You have to drive really slow at night. So what might be 12 minutes during the day is 20 minutes at night. And there are quite literally every day horses, cows, people, horse-drawn carts, really slow cars, mopeds with no lights on, all kinds of obstacles in that road. Nobody wants to drive it at night. When I got here, I was running late because we were dealing with the situation, and Paul immediately is like, I was going to go to the beach for dinner tonight, but I'm not going to drive it in the dark. Right? So Puesta del Sol, fantastic Italian restaurant off beach, lost a sale because he couldn't get out there during light. Most people that I talk to, and Larry will be another one, I will drive it, but I really do not want to drive the beach road at night if I can help it. Larry will not do it. Paul will only do it in an emergency. None of us want to do it, right? It's so slow and so dangerous and heavily patrolled, so if anything goes wrong. And if you're going to go to the beach, people think, I'm going to say this right now, I'm going to go have dinner on the beach. And I bet you all pictured some combination of wine, beer, or a cocktail. Well, if I'm driving out to the beach, I don't get to do those things, right? So that part of, and y'all thought of that as mostly expats. And trust me, y'all don't think about having a drink with dinner nearly as much as Nicaraguans do. Nicaraguans would never have dinner without a beer, right? That would be crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you even bother having dinner if you're not going to have a beer, right? That's kind of how it is. So that whole, I'm going to drive all this distance out to the beach and then I don't get to have a beer and I'm not going to enjoy the beach. I'm going to be sitting at a restaurant that might as well be in the middle of the city because I'm avoiding the beach. So what most people do, 80%, 90% of the people, probably 90 or more of the people who visit the beach during the day leave and go back to the city. Because most people do not want to spend money on a hotel at the beach. Some do, thank goodness, but many do not for a lot of reasons. But a big one is that the city is only 15 minutes, 20 minutes away. Why spend all that money to be on the beach, especially if you don't want to be there late at night, when you can go into the city with lots of nightlife and stay for cheaper and be really close to everything in the morning? Because there's no breakfast on the beach either. No one does breakfast. I mean, someone does, but it's very hard to get breakfast on the beach, and it's very basic. You can't wake up and be like, you know what I want? I want a fresh croissant and butter, and or I really want salmon on a bagel. You can't say those things. Well, you can, but it'll just be very sad because you're not going to get them. You're going to get eggs. You're going to get gallo pinto. You're going to get toast, butter potentially. You're going to get Maduro. You're going to get queso frito. That's about it. Right? If you're lucky, you might find jalapeno sauce. And so that is going to be all there is for you when you decide to stay for breakfast, if you get that. And a lot of times people will be like, I don't even know where to get breakfast when doing this. So it's very complicated in that way. And so people go back and stay in the city. Almost always, because it's so convenient and cheaper, and then you have all these breakfast places. And so it's just it's a complicated situation to be able to do things on the beach. Even though it feels like this would be the absolute logical thing, it is not. Surprised how things shut down there shortly after dark. Totally different than U.S. and European beach locales, and so much of that is when U.S. and European places do that stuff on the beach, they are putting up tons of lights, giant businesses. They're far away from cities. They make it a destination by having volume. They have a critical mass, and Nicaragua is just such a tiny place, and it's not cultural for Nicaraguans to go to the beach. In the U.S. or Europe, you make a beach and people want to be there, but in Nicaragua, you have to find a reason to convince people to go to the beach. The number of people who want to go hang out on it and the number of people who can go hang out on it is very few. And so you don't have that critical mass, but the cities do. But if they all went to the beach, then the cities wouldn't, right? There just isn't that many people. And so it really ends up being such a different animal that it's until you've spent time on a Nicaraguan beach, it's hard to imagine just how light and tiny and casual they are. Even San Juan del Sur, there's nothing there, right? Larry says, Mike should only sell chicken pot pies. He could retire in a year. He could sell his recipe for millions to Pillsbury. I wish he would make something other than chicken because I love pot pies. Anna Jones says, to stay later at the beach, you need to go by car. No, everyone goes by car, Anna. There is a bus, but the bus goes back at 6:30 is the last one. Everything goes by car. So the assumption is any potential customer at anywhere has gone by car, but that adds to the problem. If you go by car, you can't buy drinks. If you're not buying drinks, you're not going to get dinner. So if you go by car, that makes most people return early. And going by car is not pleasant to the beach, right? Driving out, and then there's no parking if it's busy. And if it's not busy, then why are you there? So it's a difficult one. Richard says, light pollution is already a massive problem for wildlife around the world. Yeah. Brian says, saving the turtles is the best. I was horrified to see turtle eggs for sale. I was offered to eat some. I passed. Yeah, it is. Be aware, it is incredibly unethical to eat turtle eggs, and it is very illegal. The locals may get away with selling them, but if anyone turned you in, you will not get away with eating them. Brent says, definitely a pass for me on the turtle eggs. Yeah. Gross and evil. I see them for sale on Facebook Marketplace a lot. Yeah, feel free to turn those people in. Richard says, iguana eggs are also common here. Iguana eggs are not protected like turtle eggs. We have a lot of iguanas, so still, please don't eat them. But I'm made to make an omelet. We have almost 30 people on. This is great. We're doing very, very busy tonight. Very cool. Hold on. Let's have to pass a message around. Mike offered to make you 5 veggie pot pies, then he'll make me a chicken one. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, let him know. Hold on. Let me go text him right now, because I should be out there on that's on the 1st, right, Larry? Luke says, hola, Marcela, get some rest. Is Marcela on? There she is. La Marcelita. Hello, everyone. I wanted to be on the show today, but I'm still in the hospital waiting for radiotherapy. I did tell them that the machine was broken and you were waiting and hoping to get that. X Liquid Dream 001X. Hello, good sir. We're coming October 11th. We'll be in LEòN on the 12th. Are you busy? Am I busy? I hope that's a joke. Yes, I am definitely busy, but I should be here. I will do my best to be able to see you. Mike on the 1st. Oh. La Marcelita, I send you many greetings and hugs. Thank you very much for all your prayers, for the support, for everything. We wish you could be here. Hopefully she will be here very soon. Oh. Not 100%. I can't listen to this right now, but people were asking about clinics. This is a video from one of the clinics in Las Pinitas. Do you guys hear that? All right, back there. There's a lizard trying to get into my room. He's having dinner on the 1st, but I won't be there. I'll be in Chinandega. Oh, no. But yeah, if we get him to go, because my kids won't be there either. So we're going to... I'm going to see if Mike can do... If he can do veggie Popeyes, I'll get a bunch to take home. But I've got to be there filming on the 1st, so I'll be in the area and I'll stop by for the dinner, I'm sure. So cool. Perfect. All right. Oh, they're selling dog food, it looks like, down at the super, they call it. It is not a super in any way whatsoever. It's not even a super mini. It is a pulperia on the corner, but it looks like they have dog food. That's awesome. Perfect. Okay. I remember I'm on deck covering a shift, so just making sure things get done. Larry says, Hamad told me Ayahuasca closed. Do you mean Amaxa? Or is this a different thing? I'm going to write this because I'm not sure, Larry, what you mean, but Amaxa is closed. Both in LEòN and in Chinandega. The chain has closed. But... Oh, no, I'm sorry, Anna. Don't click on that. Right-click and open a new window or whatever. It's a video of something from Jillian. So, Larry, Amaxa, I know, has closed. Imaxa is open. I was there 2 nights ago when my daughter needed Benadryl. It was the only thing still open that I could find. But I don't know if Ayahuasca was a typo of one of those or something extra that I don't know. Nope, a quick search doesn't bring it up, so I'm not sure. Andrew O'Neill's here. Hello, good evening, everyone. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? Mark Shippey is here. Hello, have you ever been to Vivian's in Del Sur and plan on going there in January, February? I've not. The prices were so outrageous that I wouldn't go in. My wife went there recently and said it was very mediocre and the prices were outrageous. The last time I was there, it was just people. The place was completely empty and it was just people begging you to go in. Typo, Amaxa, the clinic where I had my hip replacement. No. So, Larry, that's Amaxa with an A. They closed. Imaxa with an I is the pharmacy across the street, and they are open. Which we all heard that they had closed, but I think from typos, it's actually open. We just got confirmation from the vet the dog was most definitely poisoned. Wow. The sterilization clinic at Las Pinitas managed to do over 37 dogs and cats today, many of which street and beach animals that the volunteers caught. They keep them overnight. This is just information I'm getting off of WhatsApp right now. Making sure they don't eat or drink, then took them home for post-op for a few days. Others came in for wound cleaning, checkups, deparasitalization. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but getting rid of parasites. Deworming, and one lucky boy got a first chemo treatment for his cancer. And then there's a raffle going on. If anyone is interested in the raffle for supporting the dog's cancer treatment out on the beach, let me know. We'll get you hooked up with Jillian, and you can buy raffle tickets or raffle coupons or whatever they use. But we are doing raffle tickets to do it. I think I caught up. Oh, Janet says good luck with that. Waiting for the machine. Oh, for waiting for the machine, Marcela. I had a kind for my ears when I was 5. It was boring. That's what I remember. Yeah, she's been there all day waiting on that. X-Liquid said that we talked about the hotels in LEòN that you don't go to. Maybe that'll spike your memory of who this is. Leo says, with so many stray canines there, do you have much problem with rabies? So no, we do not. Obviously, rabies is a fear. Obviously, we are not an island like England. We do have rabies. But this is a country with socialized healthcare, even for animals. So they actually give free rabies vaccines everywhere. They come door to door and do it. And even if you're a tourist, so I'm not a tourist now, but I was when I lived in Laborio, and they came to our door and they're like, oh, you're a guest here? Awesome. Do you have dogs? Yes. Would they like rabies shots? And we're like, oh, no, we have their papers that they just had them. They're like, oh, okay, cool. But if we wanted them, they're free. Right? And you could take them somewhere and get them for free or ask as they come around. Right? So it's just really easy. And street dogs will get them at certain times and places potentially. And places like Jillian's clinic may end up organizing some of that stuff for rabies shots there. So rabies incidents here are incredibly low. There's also not nearly as many animals that tend to transfer rabies because street dogs are not a major carrier of them. You're much more likely to get them from raccoons or maybe skunks. Obviously, possums don't carry rabies, so you always want possums, right? Because they're the rabies barrier. The types of things that carry rabies in the north aren't so common here. And so we just have a much lower rabies incidence due to much higher levels of care for the animals available and this deep oversight to make sure that everybody's getting immunized, as well as just we don't have the right animals to spread it that much. And we don't have a high incidence of mice. We don't have a high incidence of rats. Of course, we have those things, but we don't have high incidence of them. We have lizards, right? We have geckos, like you just heard. We have basilisks. We have iguanas and similar in that part of the ecosystem at a much higher rate. And they don't carry rabies, nor do they have teeth. So... so that protects us quite a bit. Where we do tend to have it, if you go out into the jungle, you go east of the mountains and you're getting out into the jungle, much more likely to encounter rabies, but even then, it's still very rare compared to North America. And it says, Larry, how are you doing with your hip replacement? My husband is about to have one done here in Virginia. Anna, has he considered coming here to Nicaragua to get it done? It's a long way to travel just for a hip plate, but we know people who've done that and been very happy that they did. So it's a thing to consider for sure. I've been doing for the last 2 months a ton of programming. I am getting closer and closer to having stuff to be able to show you guys. I'm hoping in about 2 weeks to have the first kind of things I'll be able to show on the show a little bit and just brag about some of the work that I'm doing just because it's fun and exciting because it's engineering and building products. And I'm doing it, if I'm not doing this live stream and I'm not doing my late night hanging out with my kids, then that is what we're doing. Speaking of, My kids and I have been playing the video game Overboard. So fun. It's a one-player game, but there's no reason you need to not play it as a family. It's been really cool. You actually play. It's like if you know Murder She Wrote or Death in Paradise, that type of TV show. You know, every day there's a different murder to solve. Well, this is like an episode of that, but in reverse. You're actually the murderer, and you got to get away with it. And it's done in a really unique way that's a lot of fun, and we've been having a good time with that, being like, oh, how do we get away with this murder? It's been pretty cool. Janet says, I have a sort of good Claro story. That's a funny lead up. I went to get a new Samsung phone to pay monthly on my internet account. A bit of a long story, but I'm getting the phone included for renewing my Casa Claro plan and paying about 400 cordobas less monthly for that plan. There was a different option before she found out that since my name changed on my passport, it's like a new account. Oh, it was going to be get the phone free with a small phone plan for paying about 100 cordobas less per month, about $3 less per month. I don't care if I have the plan anyway, so I'm happy saving the money. How much do they charge to see Cristo de la Misericordia? I really don't know. For those who don't know what Mark is referring to, I honestly think it's free, but I don't know. What Mark is referring to is the statue of Christ. It is Christ of the mercies, or Misericordia, in San Juan del Sur. It's certainly not expensive, whatever it is, but I honestly thought it was free. So that is. If anyone knows what it costs to go up and see the statue of the Christ, let us know. The last one I actually went to is the one in Cochabamba, Bolivia, which I highly recommend. That was very cool. And I honestly don't know how much I paid to go that either. I don't pay attention to these things. I should write them down. Larry says, Anna, my hip is fine. Had operation April 2021. Takes about a year to recover. Ooh, we're over 30 people now. This is awesome. It's nice when we get some good support going on. Mike has not answered me about the pot pie question. Inquiring minds want to know. Because pot pie, Larry and I share a deep love of savory pastries. So pot pies are like my all-time favorite thing. What I really like is like root vegetable pot pie or root vegetable Wellington. My gosh, that's what I love. I had a root veggie welly in Stratford upon Avon in the Cotswolds in England. I want to say 2007 in the Black Swan. Does that sound right? And it was fantastic. It was such a good root vegetable Wellington that I can recall the pub all these years later. I could probably tell you what table I was sitting at when I ate it. It was a religious experience in savory pastry. I would consider living in England just for access to those things. And I'm told by people from England that England has changed and those things don't exist anymore. And all that culinary and pub experience is not completely gone, but really close to being gone. And you can't go back home again kind of thing. And it makes me so sad because I grew up on British television and I love that food and lifestyle. And it would be so, had I been a little bit older and been in a position to move to England, maybe 15 or 20 years before I really had a good option to, I might have done that and just really loved British living. I'm kind of glad I didn't because I really like where I ended up. But like there was a culture in the late 80s through the 90s and early 2000s, kind of a 20-year period when life in England was just amazing. And, it would have been something. Now, now it's just like, no, like there's cool bits, but you're struggling so much to be able to really enjoy them, and giving up so much of the memories, the things that were so good that it just isn't the place of my memory. I'm actually looking at a map trying to find if this pub still exists in Stratford-upon-Avon. It's been long enough that I don't remember exactly where we stayed, and of course it's been so long that none of the businesses and things are still there. And now there's like a Crown Plaza in town. Like that is not the place that I went. The Boston Tea Party is a pub in... Oh, that's just weird. Larry says, just send him a WhatsApp that your show is blowing up with pot pie customers. I did send him a pot pie request. Luke says, fading fast. Long day, late class, early class tomorrow. Audio, y'all. Thanks, Luke. We will let you know about the loading of books, hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully she manages to get radiation tonight and tomorrow. That would be... Ooh, I found the place. Is it still there? It's... maybe? It's still there. Oh, I think I found this not so long ago. The Dirty Duck in Stratford. Don't leave my show to go look at the link, but open it in a new tab. But that was the pub with the most amazing root vegetable Wellington 20 years ago. I wonder if they have a picture of the Wellington. That would be something. Oh, yeah, there's the outside. Wow. Well, it's been a long time. I do miss cold, drizzly days. I'll give them that. Vin says, pub lunches used to be great. Oh, I bet. I worked in England in 2007 a little bit. So I got to spend some time. I had an office on Canary Wharf. And, oh my gosh, there's one of their Wellingtons. That's so funny. From 2022. It doesn't look the same, but looks decent. Yeah, pub lunches. Chilly nights. I miss chilly nights. Waterways of Swans. You know, there's every part of the world has something different and interesting, and you have to pick and choose, which is sad because you wish you had everything. Have I been to the Art Warehouse restaurant? I have not. I have been to the Art Warehouse before there was a restaurant. I don't even know that the restaurant had opened. I assume you mean in San Juan del Sur. They're on Happy Cow. Do they not have a website? No, they don't appear to. Yeah, it looks like they're new, or pretty new. No, I've not been there. I did buy my wife some posters, some paintings from the Art Warehouse. And Chad says, well, England is way too much like Oregon for me to ever consider living there. I love this LEòN weather, personally. Hey, Scott, did your broken foot end up healing without issue? Hey, Milton. So, no. It did heal. It's all messed up. My toes go in all different directions. It still hurts. It doesn't hurt is the wrong term. It feels icky. If I put any pressure on my toes, I can tell they're in the wrong place, and my brain is just like grossed out by my own broken toes. So that is unfortunate. I'm able to walk and stuff fine. I walk barefoot all the time without any problem, so it's not like it's caused a real problem other than that 2-year period of doing a lot less walking. But it's mostly been okay. It was about 6 months after I broke it, my daughter's like, Dad, your toes are not in the right places. And I started looking at it. I'm like, oh, they're not. Oh, Yeah, wow. But they're all as attached as they're going to be. I'm not 100% confident that they are all attached. Some of them, as I'm doing this, my left foot, which did not break, I'm doing one thing with it, and I do the same thing with the right foot, and some of the toes do things that make me, oh, sorry, I just did it. They like move in ways they shouldn't move. And it makes me wonder if the bone is not completely connected or something, or just in the wrong position and doesn't take the pressure well. When I'm walking, it's fine, but when I'm barefoot and actually start messing with it, I can't. So no, it did not completely heal. These things, you know. It's all part of the customization of our life choices. But once again, broke my foot because I love my dog and I did not want my dog to get hurt. And so, and the one who broke my foot is in here sleeping. Aren't you? She's very happy there was no storm today, so she's not had a nervous day. You guys are a little bit quiet. We got a lot of people on, though. So you may be quiet, but plenty of people are on, which is nice. And luckily, work is not too busy. I'm covering that. Okay, so a new pizza place appears to have opened up in LEòN. I want to ask if anyone knows about this. I was thinking about ordering a pizza to check it out. It's called Bamboo Nicaragua. It's listed as new. I saw it for the first time today, and it says that they have delivery here, and the pizzas are not expensive. I asked my daughter if she wanted one. She said, and it looks like a 10 slice, which means nothing. Like, what size? But a 10 slice is 240 cord, and a 14 slice, is it the same size pizza, just cut in more, whatever, 296. But they do like weird mix of meats, and I'm trying to figure out if there's some way to order something that isn't just covered in meat. And of course, it's never clear. Leo says, how did you break it? Skydiving? I broke it walking through the living room. I was walking through, this is when we had our house in La Barrio, which is now the Super Express on 4th. I was walking, and for some reason, I can't remember what it was, I was carrying my small dog, and it's tile floors, of course, and uneven. And I went to step into my bedroom holding my dog, and the big dog crashed into me because she's a maniac, and knocked me off my balance. And I was starting to fall, and I had the choice. I couldn't drop the dog, he would get hurt, and I couldn't catch myself very well. I had to step forward, which was fine under normal circumstances, but I was barefoot, and there's a concrete lip on the floor. So I stepped forward to catch myself, and my foot went exactly against the lip, and every single one of my toes snapped. And it was just outrageously painful because it was my full body weight, barefoot, concrete, nothing to give, in exactly the worst position. And I had to put my weight down because I was carrying the dog. So I had to pivot, put my other foot in front, and then lift that foot up and get it to safety, and then hold it and rock, crying myself in pain for a while. So it was absolutely horrible. One of the most painful things I've ever done in my life. Not the most, but up there. It was just horrible. But then I saw some people, and they're like, nah, it's not broken. It's just, this or that. No, it was broken. They're all in the wrong place. I did finally see a podiatrist, and he's like, what do you want me to do? You're like, they're all broken. Yeah, might as well just walk it off. I'm like, that's what I've been doing. He's like, yeah. I also had Yvonne, who we have a GoFundMe for down. She needs some back surgery. So we're always trying to raise to take care of everybody, right? She was at the time weeks, maybe not weeks, but months away from going to Guatemala for her first ever vacation, first time leaving the country. And I was kind of chaperoning her, and then our boss ended up going with us, Valentina. And she was like, your broken foot had better not mess up my vacation. And so I did this whole trip to Guatemala, which now, looking back, it's like I totally forget that was the case. But I took the 20-hour bus to Guatemala, toured all over the country with Yvonne and Valentina on a broken foot. And I did all my filming. Now I've done some filming since then. But my 2022 several episodes all over Guatemala, hiking around Atitlan, doing stuff out in Tecpan in the country, going around Antigua, going around Guatemala City, walking the parks everywhere, all the stories of Valentina and I, exploring everything on foot. All of that was on a broken foot, as was, I think, just after that when I walked to the beach from the house. So I've only walked to the beach from the house one time, and it was on the broken foot. And I thought it was okay until I got about halfway and I was trapped. Mark says that would be nice to catch an iguana, but I think it would not be allowed to take home. I mean, Nicaragua doesn't care if you're taking iguanas anywhere, but I think wherever home is might care. Finn says Stilton cheese and biscuits is great. That sounds really good. Jan says, I only broke one toe on one foot by kicking a suitcase at night by accident and in the dark in a hotel in Brazil. About 10 years later, I rebroke it by kicking a different suitcase in the middle of the night at the Grand Canyon. My toe is now in the right position. I hope you don't have to do that to get it all fixed. GG says, did you watch the video that Nomad Capitalist made recently telling the story of when he was held at gunpoint in Managua? Thoughts? I did not. I have found so much of his stuff incredulous that I don't honestly believe his stuff, so I don't watch it. Sometimes he has good points, so I don't want to be like, the show's worthless, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. He doesn't have a business model that feels like it's built on a whole lot of integrity and depends on suing people who disclose what they feel about the situation. So what I can say is that I don't feel comfortable telling what I believe to probably be the case about his trip to Nicaragua, because he will just, I assume, sue me if I cast any doubt on the story. So, but I think the fact that I have to say that tells you more than you could possibly know about the situation. But also, I mean, all of his stories are just stories, right? Watching his show, which places to go, where they have advice for, right? Anybody with a green screen can just spout random stuff. Is any of it researched? I've checked some things that I know some things about, some places where I have research. I know the things that I've spot checked are completely fabricated and false. So I assume the things I'm not spot checking must not be reliable. Does that mean he's just making things up? No. Does that mean he has bad research staff who are, scamming him? Maybe. We don't know. I don't know. What I know is I've spot checked stuff and it was completely wrong. So that tells me that watching his stuff does not enhance my life in any way. You don't learn by watching his show. All you do is find out. Sometimes he has opinion pieces that are decent, but I wouldn't. I would take anything you see on his show with a grain of salt. But some of the things that are interesting, he's always kind of portrayed in the past the issues he has with Nicaragua as being current. Not being a really long time ago, right? Because it's like 14 years ago or something, right? When crime was much higher in Nicaragua. So it's often portrayed in other videos because he's been talking about it for years, and it's always as if it's relevant to the modern day. So something 14 years ago is not, right? It would be like complaining about the Democrats being in control of the government in America. Well, there was a time when that was true, but it's not now. Right, so complaining about it it's a legitimate story if it's true, but you have to have that context, and without that context, certainly the portrayal isn't honest. Now, he gave that context now, but all the times we've heard about it in the past as a beware, it's a dangerous country. One, he's supposed to be a person who understands statistics and business, so he should, if he was what he claims to be, instantly saying, this is anecdotal, so it doesn't apply. But he doesn't, so we have a problem, right? That alone, just the way he gives that story, tells us a lot about how he treats the material he's working with. The second piece being that then to extrapolate that and to take it reasonably quite a bit out of context is ridiculous. Gigi says, do people need to be careful in Managua? More than in other places of the country. Well, it's a big city, so yes, right? Big cities and tourist locations are always, with the rarest exception, more dangerous. So we could extrapolate this to, do you need to be more careful in Cancun, Cabo, Barcelona, New York City, Washington, D.C., Madrid, Rome, Naples, Berlin, London, and so forth, Paris, than in other parts of those countries. Yes, in all those cases, their capitals and or large cities are more likely to be dangerous, and if they are large cities and a tourist destination, which Managua is not, it is only a large city, if they are the two combined, then you certainly have a lot of things to be concerned about. Places that are large cities with a lot of tourism, like Naples and Barcelona, definitely have tons of crime, still not problems, don't be afraid to go there, but tons of crime compared to the very safe countries that they're in. So it's, I lived in Spain, right? Spain is safe to such an absurd degree that it is so hard to come up with how you could ever be scared of anything in Spain. And yet, if you go to Barcelona, you're like, wow, just be aware, you are going to be assaulted on the street. There's just no way it's not going to happen, right? That's so much tourism. Same thing in Nicaragua. You want to know where you need to be worried? Large cities, tourist centers, right? Downtown Granada, San Juan del Sur, Managua in the barrios. Those are the places you got to watch out for. But just because tourist centers in big cities, not because Managua is a dangerous city. Same thing with New York City. Do you need to be careful in New York City? Of course you do. Is it high crime for a large city? Actually, no. It's low crime for a large city, but large city. And when you're a tourist, typically your danger goes up quite a bit. But is there ever, if there's ever a real, what am I trying to say? Fear of like crime, you have to compare it to other things in the region. Like, is Managua at its worst ever come close to, say, San Jose in Costa Rica? Oh my gosh, no. The crime level in San Jose is so extreme compared to Managua. Now, I gotta let the dog in. I'll keep talking. Does that mean you should avoid going to San Jose, Costa Rica? Absolutely not. It's a beautiful city. Just be careful and be aware that you're at a crime rate that is much, much, much higher than the surrounding Costa Rican countryside, which is already much, much higher than the most dangerous parts of Nicaragua, right? Would you ever consider going to the beach in Costa Rica? Well, that's more dangerous than the barrios in Managua that you got to worry about, right? So it's all about perspective. So the real question would be, do you plan on walking around really poor, bad neighborhoods of Managua? If you do, and that's fine, feel free to do so, probably do it during daylight, probably don't do it alone. I do it at night, and I do it alone. I don't worry about it. That's probably stupid, right? So be aware, Scott tends to be a little bit stupid and reckless, so take that into account. But I also do those things and have never been jumped, right? We knock on some wood there, but like, seriously, I do so many things that people are so convinced are so ridiculously dangerous. And it's not just, I got lucky, I got away from somebody, or it didn't really happen. I never see anything that I have to worry about. Maybe I'm blind and just get lucky. But I do it a lot, right? And so it seems like if it was, I mean, I'm becoming anecdotal, right? So we got to be careful. I don't want to end up like someone who might be giving advice about their stories of having something happen to them. So something bad happened to him. I think we all know, right? Some people invite problems, and he was legitimately here in a different time. I was here in 2015, which is much closer to when that happened to him, supposedly, and I felt a lot more in danger then than I do now, right? It's a very different country than it was a decade ago, as is a lot of places, right? 10 years ago, mass shootings weren't common in the U.S. They were starting to, but they weren't really, nothing like now. Right? Those things changed. If 10, 15 years ago, you said, are you worried about your kids going to the mall, going to school? And you can say, okay, but even so, statistically, Scott, that shouldn't be things that you should be worried about. Except my niece had her boyfriend have to jump out the window because his best friend was executed right next to him, and he was shot at on the evening news in his classroom. And my kids' school that they would have been in had a mass shooter. And their babysitter's entire family was executed in a mass shooting in our local mall. So 3 times my kids have already nearly crossed paths with a mass shooting, and my kids still have years to go had they stayed in a U.S. school. So again, anecdotal, but 3 times that they've directly had contact We know people who've been shot at in mass shootings. We know families who are gone that we're connected to, that the entire family was wiped out in a mass shooting. So that is anecdotal, but it's also really dramatic for people who we ourselves are never putting ourselves in those positions, and still we cross paths with this so much. So if you were to go back in the U.S. 10, 15 years ago and say you're going to, in the future, be in this position where all these scary things may apply to you, your life may cross paths with these things, we'd be like, that is so unlikely. What? No. And the same thing if you went back 15 years in Nicaragua and said, in 15 years it's going to be so safe that a discussion of being worried about the worst barrio in Managua will seem crazy. You'd be like, what? No way. Like, it's fine, but how could it be that safe? And yet it is, right? So it's all perspective. If name a big city where you wouldn't have to say those things, right? There isn't. Zurich, you don't have to be afraid anywhere. And it says, Scott, let us know if you hear more about the call centers. Well, definitely let me know what it is you want to have heard about. I find it unlikely that the bill's going to go through. I think we'll hear nothing more about it. That is my guess. But if we do hear anything and it does move forward, my guess is that it's going to have just no real impact on anything. That is it just doesn't seem like it's going to do what people think it's going to do. Maybe it will. Maybe it will actually have maybe it'll have some huge impact that we just don't foresee. That's possible for sure. But I don't think there's much chance of that. Leo says, I watched your ice bucket challenge, giggles. I believe that ice bucket challenge was in front of my house in New York. 2014, maybe? That's crazy. Apparently there was a fight in the Mexican Senate today. That's funny. Like, actual fist fight broke out. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's funny. Trying to find if there's anything in the news. There's not. You guys are quiet again. I'm getting some caffeine. Barley Brother. Hey, Scott, good seeing you. Out of all your years in Nicaragua, how many instances have you heard of the government taking people's property and kicking them out of the country? I have to think about this carefully. Well, so we have to be careful. Heard of or are aware of happening? Aware of happening, none. Heard of, constant. But every time I follow up on it, it's, oh, well, it was a story. I knew a guy. No one knows who it actually was. Or, oh, well, they're actually here. Okay, what part of kicked out is that? Well, okay, they weren't really kicked out. Okay, but they don't have the land anymore. Well, okay, they're actually living on it. Okay, so where, right? Of actual knowing people who have had their property taken away and kicked out of the country, zero. That I can think of. Honestly, that combination, never. That's my dad and aunt. Good night. Hug to the family. Love you guys. Have a good time. Enjoy. I guess it's August. It's warm. Oh, it's too warm in New York. No. We were nice here today. It was not too bad. But yeah, so property laws are really strong here. The idea that the government is going to, especially a foreigner, right, that they're going to kick you out and take your property away is just really, really unheard of. Can it happen? It could happen anywhere, right? But it's not something I've heard of happening. What can happen, of course, do people get kicked out? Yeah, people get kicked out of anywhere. That's if you own property and get kicked out, normally you would be simply the same as anyone who's not present but owns property, right? If you get kicked out of the U.S. and own property in the U.S., you may not be able to go to it, but you still own it, right? So you sell it from abroad or whatever. I am aware of people who are no longer in the country who sell property, who are, bothering to. It's cold and raining now in August. Wild climate change. So if you find yourself in a situation where your visa's not being renewed, right? That's the most common scenario, is simply not that people get deported. I'm sure someone does, right? But far more often is someone doesn't get their visa renewed, because that's all they have to do. Same as the U.S., right? If you're on a tourist visa or whatever, they renew, if it's tourist, every 180 days, but they have a chance to decline a renewal every 90 days, right? So there's always a maximum. There's always a maximum. Hold on. It's funny that on the video you're asking this, and they're discussing this on the LEòN group. According to Jerry, I don't know where he got this number, but 59 countries have expropriated land and businesses. Obviously, the U.S. being one of them. I grew up in the U.S., and the U.S. expropriates land like crazy. Nearly everyone I know has had land expropriated by the U.S. Plus, the U.S. grabs land from you that they don't call expropriation, but is another form of it. You have to buy it, and they get to own it. But you always need to be aware. But it's funny because he's saying you got to be careful when investing in a foreign country that they can take your land, and you may have no recourse. But it's also true that in possibly even more cases, in your own country, you have the least recourse because your own government is always the most powerful, right? It's like the spying thing. What if China is spying on me? Well, I'm not Chinese, so I don't want China spying on me. But honestly, if the Chinese are so bored that they want to watch my life, it doesn't really affect me at all. They have no ability to do anything negative to me using that information, or they would have to spend a fortune. Like, what is China going to do to me? I'm not in China and I'm not Chinese, right? They can't recall my passport. They can't massively affect my life. If China decided that I was enemy number one and they sent secret agents to come take me out, they don't need to spy on me to do that. If they want to target me and come after me, they're just going to do it, right? But if there's a country I have to be afraid of that has the ability to harm me, just because they have the power to do so, not because they would or would not, but because they have the physical capability of doing so, it's my own country. It's the United States, right? They can recall my passport. They can cancel that. They can cancel my driver's license. They can cancel my Social Security. They can, issue arrest warrants for me around the world. They can do all kinds of things. Plus, send us international super spies to come track me down or whatever. Plus, they have far more access to my information, and they can use that information against family, friends, collect it from other people, go after them in ways that, the Chinese can't. And so there's a real additional fear of your own country, whatever that country is, just your own country, has more ability to harm you or threaten you than a foreign country does, right? It's just that simple. There's your own space. It's kind of like in a business, right? Who's the most likely person to steal from or sabotage your business? An employee, right? Even though there's only a few employees and tons of non-employees in the world, all those non-employees together don't quite equal the threat of your own employees. That doesn't mean you should go around suspecting your own employees, but they represent the biggest risk pool. In the same way, wherever you live, your government will always represent your greatest risk pool. So that's what brings that up. But it's just funny that everyone's asking that at the same time. But, one of the reasons that we like to invest here is the greater degree of safety that we have compared to where we're from, right? I'm not saying that that's the reason that we would invest here in Nicaragua. I'm not going to seek out Nicaragua because I'm scared of the U.S. Expropriating my property, even though I've been through that to some degree. That's not realistic. Statistically, that is just, when in business, you have to use statistics. And so that isn't something I would use as a driving factor, but certainly that I feel far more confident in the safety of my property in Nicaragua than I do in the U.S. is real. And stronger laws against other things like squatters and stuff. Not a huge deal, but positive, right? Good property laws that have been around a long time and worked. TJ says, hey, everyone. Anna Jones said something, but she then... Oh, in my opinion, Nicaraguans love their Nicaraguan food. Yeah, that is definitely true. Nicaraguans rarely like other food. When they do, it's like, oh, I love to taste that once in a while. And then right back to Nicaraguan food, almost always. Barley Brother says, I get the feeling that many of us are nefariously told that these places are the scariest countries you can live in, so that we remain where we are and continue to be a debt slave and fund their system. That's more than a feeling. That is exactly what's going on. Now you're quiet. But yeah, living where we do, near the beaches and with around many expats, there's always stories. Right? We hear constant stories, because, of course, it's being fed from the outside. Oh, it's so scary. They're going to take your land. Oh, it's so scary. You got to worry about it so much. And you're like, okay, show me examples. Show me. And I have a video. I don't think it's come out yet on the chisme culture here, which is the gossip culture. If it has come out, someone tell me. And locally, right? It's not like, hey, I knew a guy in Managua, right? Okay, far off place. You could totally have that story. I couldn't check that out reasonably, but I'll hear it about places like, for example, my direct next door neighbor, right? And I'll be like, wow, really? They took his land. Oh, well then, can I go buy it? Like, that would be great. I would like that land. Who do I get into contact with? Oh, and so you follow the guy that they say that it was taken from is the owner, and he's the one that would sell it to you. Okay, that doesn't sound like they took his land, right? How is he the seller and the deed holder if they took his land, right? So we follow up on these things on a regular basis because we actively want to buy property, and sometimes it would be sometimes it would be nice to be able to get some of those spots. And of course, you don't know the backstory, right? So there's two things that can happen. One is that something bad happens, or someone perceives something bad happening, and they make up a story about that the land is taken. And then the other is that when someone wants to sell land, or land for some reason becomes available, then someone makes up a backstory as to some nefarious thing that made it happen, right? And it's always things that you can't follow up. So you're often left in this like, okay, so this place is being sold, and then everybody's bored, so they're making up these stories about everything, but you never follow one and come down to like a real, solid story of, okay, so this really happened. I can tell you there's a couple rundown properties that were taken from people who had, killed scores of people. They had their land taken away. But even there, the government didn't take it and use it. They just didn't let them have it back. Thank goodness, right? I personally very much in favor of, if you kill people to take their land, you don't get to keep it. It's just a personal thing. But I think it's an important one. Some countries protect stolen property, right? I don't agree with that. That is expropriation through private expropriation. The other is, I do know of one property, but the property is in complete disrepair. It's basically dust, and I have shown it on the show, and has very clearly painted on it that it is the property of the tax office, specifically the income tax office, which implies it was owned by a business, not a person, and that it was taken as part of tax debt. Now, we don't know the actual story. Maybe it was taken because, who knows why. But you could say that about anything, right? If you go into the U.S., things are seized all the time. We don't really think of it as a bad thing if they're taking it because, well, they didn't pay their taxes for 20 years. Well, of course they're going to take your land, right? Especially if it's a business not paying its taxes. If it's your homestead, well, maybe they won't. But if it's a business and it's there to, make money and they're paying dividends to their stockholders, but they're stealing from the American people, using the U.S. as the example, yeah, as an American, that's my property. I expect the government to take it. If the government doesn't take it, you're stealing from me, right? If the government doesn't prosecute those things, you're stealing from every American, or at least every shareholder who has an interest in that. So there's a balance there. And then if you're not the one affected, you don't know the backstories. Even in the U.S., you're just left with, well, this is the story we heard. But in the U.S., you don't have the gossip culture in the way that you do in Nicaragua. So in Nicaragua, you have no idea what's going on because everybody swears they have the story. And it was made up by their grandmother that morning. What's the best way to keep your money there safe while visiting? I'm sure you don't want to carry lots of cash on you. How does a tourist go to deal with that? That's easy, Mark. Don't have cash. I mean, I've never heard of, and certainly this doesn't imply that it doesn't happen. What I mean by this is not anecdotally, I've never heard of this. What I mean is that statistically, it is super rare compared to other places, or it's statistically similar to the United States that ATM and credit card theft is extremely low, right? When you're in like Africa, I've been in Africa and had my card stolen before, right? Not stolen, but like I used it and a shim got it and I had to shut off my accounts. I had to do that in Africa. I've had my wallet stolen in Europe. In Nicaragua, I've never had anyone be like, oh, yeah, someone got my card. We had to shut off the card we had to deal with. I'm sure it must happen. But like using the ATMs here, you don't have to worry about shims in the way that you do in a lot of the old world, right? The same thing. You don't have to worry about them in the U.S. either. We never go to a bank ATM and go, oh, gosh, I sure hope someone didn't break into this and put a shim into it to steal my card data. And partly that's because we now have contactless ATMs and stuff, so it's way harder to do those things. But just use an ATM like you would in the U.S. or Canada. Don't carry very much cash. Take out only what you need. Use local currency. And I walk around with, I shouldn't advertise this, a fair amount of cash when I do. Sometimes I have nothing, right? So if you're planning on mugging me, don't be surprised. Half the time you'll get several $100s and half the time you're going to get nothing. We're not a heavy mugging country. It's not like the U.S., so a lot of those fears are minor. Barley Brother says, sounds like gossip culture in Nicaragua villages similar to the rural small town in Canada and the U.S. A bit of the truth mixed with a whole lot of exaggeration. Like you said, people are bored. I grew up in small town U.S. There is no comparison in my mind, right? I grew up in, if you're Canadian, picture Letterkenny, right? That's where I grew up. And I grew up really close to where Letterkenny takes place, right? I grew up on just the U.S. side of Niagara Falls. And even that culture in the U.S. and Canada is nothing compared to what you get in Nicaragua. Now, part of that is because village life here is so many more people physically out on the street talking to each other in person. It just creates so many more network connections for gossip to travel in ways that, and the U.S. and Canada have so much online that there's so many mechanisms to curtail gossip, right? Because in the U.S., you're going to do some gossip. All right, send me the link. Oh, I don't have a link. All right, gossip stops here, right? I don't want to be the person who repeats something that doesn't have a link to it. So sure, lots of gossip happens, but it's limited to what that link says. It doesn't skew over time because you keep going back to the source. But in Nicaragua, there's no source. So someone's like, well, I heard, and of course it's their drunk grandmother in the afternoon. It's always a grandmother who's drinking in the afternoon. And they're like, here's this thing I made up, but I'm hoping it's true because it's nasty and it makes me happy that bad things are happening to other people. And then they tell it to unsuspecting teenagers who are like, I trust my grandmother. And then they repeat it somewhere and it spreads really quickly. And people are walking from shop to shop and business to business. And everybody's hanging out on the street and passing each other. They've got it's like the passeggiata in Italy at night. And just everybody's talking to everybody firsthand. And there is no source. No one even knows where the source might possibly be. And so the degree to which the gossip both spreads and skews is unreal. And even when we have really solid belief that we have the real information on something, we're never 100% sure. It's like, and I'm always afraid that I'm going to give info on the show and it'll be like, well, that was some pretty believable gossip, but no, that's not. But the number of things that people say to me, right? Oh, the new Carretera coming up along the beaches, it's going to do this and that and all these things. And I'm like, I know that's all gossip. That's just people making stuff up and they think it's funny. Like, aha, people believe it's going to connect to Costa Rica. How clearly obvious is it that it's not going to do that, right? How obvious is it that we're not building a canal? Obviously, we're not building a canal. Obviously, nothing that has to do with a canal has ever happened. And yet, people will be like, no, I heard. And the things that they say they've heard ranges so broadly and is so crazy. You know, I heard that the poorest nation in Europe donated tons and tons and tons of equipment. That doesn't even make sense. Why would you be sending Eastern European equipment during a war through the war zone when you don't have any money and we have no need for it because we don't have a project to use it on? Like, that makes no sense. Harley says, old women gossiping sounds a lot like Sunday church. There's a lot of that. A lot of women here, especially, hang out at churches during the week because it's just a free thing to go to. So they're a hotbed for a lot of nasty stuff. Anna says, weird question. What am I supposed to do when the advertisements come during your live? It's a good chance to use the bathroom. You could grab a beer, pour some wine, make popcorn, stand up and stretch, of course. Go hug your dog and remind them that you love them. If you have children, tell them that they should be watching the show with you because it's an awesome show. You could call some family members and tell them to get on and watch the show. All those are good ways to spend the time during that. But most likely bathroom break. That's traditionally what you should do. I hate that it's not at the same time for everyone because I would just stop talking. But instead, it just leaves me blank for a minute. But a little bit different for everyone. You got to love the messages you get from Telegram. How's the acceleration on your new Tesla? I don't know this person. Spam. Anna says live. During your live. What was that, Anna? Whoop. My phone started to fall. I've not had enough to drink today. This is just Pepsi, in case anybody's wondering. I just it was so busy that I really didn't get a lot of water today, so I'm a little bit dehydrated. Barley, I'm sure you have videos on this, but how long do you have to remain in Nicaragua before you are allowed to apply for residency? About 15 minutes. So you're allowed to apply as soon as you can get there to apply. Luke, who left already, managed to do the entire thing. It was done in under 3 weeks. I don't remember what it is that convinced him that applying so quickly was worth it, but he was like ready to go, and he holds the record, to my knowledge, of hit the ground, knew what he was doing, had done all of his research ahead of time, did nothing before he actually got here, started the thing, and run through the whole process really quickly. And so a couple weeks. But to start it, you could start the first day, not a problem. It's only that you have to start it from inside the country. So once you step inside the country, I guess that's the important thing is once you're inside, it's all the same, right? Whether you've been here for a minute or 89 days, 11 hours or whatever. It's all the same. You are a tourist at that point. A tourist can apply for residency at any time. Gigi says, sorry to keep being grim, lol, but I'm curious, do people have to worry about human trafficking and kidnapping there? No, not a thing. People would be, I did see that you put that earlier. I don't know why it got skipped. My apologies. Really not a thing here. I think people would be really surprised that it even comes up. Like, what would make that a concern, right? Where would people be taken to? Who's going to pay a ransom for kidnapping? None of that seems logical. It's a different world. So yeah, every time I go back to the U.S., it is such a reminder that everything is human trafficking. Signs everywhere, beware of human trafficking. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I've never known a person from here that was human trafficked, but of course I know people who were human trafficked back home. Everyone does. And so it's just like, wow, you forget that that's like an everyday fear that people have. But not here. Gigi says, has AI hit Nicaragua? Like, do people use it a lot there, like in the States? No, they absolutely do not. Do they use it? Of course, right? It's just a website to us. I mean, it's probably just a website to you too, right? But Nicaraguans use computers less than North Americans do, just as a percentage of their day. The number of computers you have access to is fewer. The amount of time you're likely to use it is less. Your screen time is lower. So naturally, anything that's used over a computer is just going to be, if we use the computer half as much as Americans, we use AI half as much as Americans, probably, something like that. But we could also say it about, do Nicaraguans use email as much as no, we do not. Do we use websites as much? No. Do we use, name the thing, online video games? We're much closer in that, but not so much. So the only AI that I really am aware of people using here is like my own employees who work in technical realms, and so they're not using like ChatGPT. They're using complicated, very specific tooling for the industry, like Windsurf and Junie and stuff that people don't generally know, because it's very focused industrial automation type stuff. So they use it, but do I ever talk to normal people who are like, I went and talked to AI? I have one person on my team here who has no part of his job utilizes that. He just, for his own stuff in life, loves to do that. It really stands out. He's the only person I know of here who talks about using AI at all. I do use AI here for my job, specifically the tools that I mentioned. I'm very big fans of Windsurf and Junie. I use them both quite a bit. But outside of that, like even the expats that I know here don't tend to use it. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It's going to be a later adoption. If you think about the way that we use computers here, we're just going to be slower on the uptake of those types of things by quite a bit more than you'd think. There's just the same way that like fashion has a delay here. That'll do that too. And also remember that people don't tend to speak English, so most AIs are much better in English than they are in Spanish. So people who are bilingual everyone I know who does use it does so in English, not in Spanish. That's a major driver. And I've looked at some things just out of curiosity, and obviously Spanish works, but the amount of training and the amount of capability that AIs tend to have in English is much, much higher. Mark says, what's the best way to buy Cordobas instead of using American money? It's the easiest possible answer. We just act like we do nothing. That is the answer. If I was in America, what would I do? Or if I was in Canada, what would I do? I would never exchange money. I would never worry about having cash. I would just be there and go to the ATM and take out whatever it is I want from the ATM, because my American cards work in Canada, my Canadian cards work in America, and so forth. Same thing if I go to Guatemala. I don't worry about things because I can just go to the ATM and take out quetzales. It's easy traveling. Argentina was complicated because they were specifically in a financial crisis, but I've never had to worry. I've been to 40 countries. I've never had to worry about currency except that one time when I was in Argentina during a currency crisis. And we knew going in that it was going to be a problem. And that's it, right? No other country, even places that are difficult to get into with lots of visas and approvals and stuff, like Bolivia and places in North Africa, just hit the ATM, do the easiest thing, and it really does work well. if you're going to move just tons of money and you need to make sure you're saving every possible penny, well, sometimes there's more efficient ways. But as a tourist, just hit the ATM. Also, be aware that you can just use American money here. It's a dual currency country, so it's not like using American money is a problem. It's just that many things are going to be priced. Well, they have to be priced in Cordobas. Anything that's really low cost or has an odd amount, you're going to be paying extra overhead. Some people will, you'll get gringo priced more if you're giving American dollars, of course. But there's no reason you can't use them. Barley says, do Nicaraguans generally have larger families? From what you've seen, of course, absolutely they have larger families. Partially that's because they have normal families, and places like the U.S. and Canada now have tiny families. Nothing wrong with that, but those are countries that are generally in economic collapse. U.S. and Canada have gone over the demographic horizon, as they say, whereas Nicaragua is still a growth demographic, right? They're still having more kids than they had grandparents or whatever. So, yes, larger families, but not large families. Just you're much more likely to have 2 or 3 kids, whereas Americans are much more likely to have 0 to 1.5, right? But I think you're much more likely to find like a family of like 9 kids in the U.S., but finding one of 4 or 5 here, certainly not uncommon, partially because in the U.S., the average, whatever it's called, the average age of first birth, whatever that they use, is they use the woman's age at the time that she has her first child. I don't know what the average is in the U.S., so it's like 23 or something, which people will be like, wow, that sounds really low, but that's the average across all of society. And in Nicaragua, the average is like 17, right? Like it's not a little bit different. And those are wildly different numbers at that age range. It's not like one country's like, oh, we tend to retire at 65, and somewhere else is like, we tend to retire at 70. 5 years at that age, yeah, it's still important, but it's not as important. But when you're talking about childhood numbers, right, that 5-year difference is unbelievable. Most countries are like, we're 2 months older than you, and those kinds of things, not years older. So because it is completely normal, and because there is no stigma at all to having kids as a teenager, having kids when you're 16 puts many women in really good position to have a second child at 19. They can have a fair number of kids and be done by 30. And then, because their parents are young, much younger than American grandparents would be, generally they raise kids, and those parents who just had all those kids are the ones who go to the workforce, and they do the staggered thing in many cases. And that means that there's many more people at working age focusing on working, and people at healthy birthing age having kids, and people at not as busy, more mature parts of life raising said kids. It makes it that it's a lot easier to have an extra kid or two, simply because, one, you're not the one who's necessarily raising them, so you don't directly feel the pinch of that decision, but also because many women in U.S. and Canada are making their decision on their 4th child is almost always one based on health of themselves, right? Okay, the 3rd child was tough. That was several years ago. Now it's so much harder, right? Now I'm not 35. Now I'm 38, right? Do I really want to go through pregnancy again at that age? And of course, many do, but that's a much more of a, am I able to handle this decision? Whereas even my housekeeper, right, great example, she just turned 40, and her grandson is 7? Is that possible? Yeah, seems about right. Her daughter was over here today. Her daughter is probably 25? Can that be right? No, she's got to be 22. And then her younger daughter is 18, was on the show, is about to be on the show, just because we're going to show the gym that they work at. But because she started having kids when she was young, she has, I think, 4 children and a grandchild, and she's only 40. She's way younger than me. And so for Americans, if she was having her 3rd kid, she would just have had it in many cases. But for her youngest is already a mostly independent adult who's at university. And all of her older kids have careers and do things on their own. And so it's a very different thing. She lives almost next door, really close, to her mother. And her mother is constantly out doing things. Her mother is young and spry and actively working, and all of her older siblings are busy doing things and whatever. So it's that alone causes much bigger families, just because there's the mechanisms, the ability, the health to have more kids is there. Plus, having children is free here. It's not that healthcare cost. AI, Cordobas, large families. How's the customer service and hospitality over there? Is it part of the culture? It is not. There's no customer service. None. There's no hustle. People are friendly and nice, but they're not going to come check on you. They're not going to put in extra effort. They're not going to upsell you. They're not going to see if you need anything. They're not. I don't like it. But I'm American, so it's built in that I'm going to like certain things and not others. But I hate, I would like a glass of water. Why do I have to ask 3 times? It should show up just because I sat down, right? Anna says, is it less costly to see a doctor like a dermatologist in LEòN than Managua? Absolutely, yes. That is, it is amazing how much cheaper that kind of stuff is in the country. Even the same doctor, in many cases, will be cheaper in LEòN than in Managua, just because everything in Managua is more expensive. Rent's higher, business costs are higher, licensing costs is higher, taxes are higher, and so forth. So everything is more expensive there. I don't know the actual numbers, but half, completely reasonable. Now, obviously, we're not getting nearly as many resources, but things are half the price is very, very possible. And especially something like a dermatologist. I know my wife's dermatologist in Managua is relatively expensive, and her dermatologist in LEòN is outrageously cheap, and I think it's a bigger than half difference. Rowdy Mobile Home Services. Hi, Scott. Hope all is well, my brother. Hey, Rowdy. How's it going? Patricia says, did your housekeeper tell your daughters to step it up and give you some grandchildren? I don't think she has said that yet. No. It's funny. Oh, Janet says, upselling? Claro upsells for sure. They have not done that to me in any way, shape, or form in the past. So I wonder, what is it about you, Janet, that makes them do that? But yeah, I've not experienced that at all. Oh, Marcela says she just left her radiotherapy. But her taxi can't come for an hour. Gilbert. I've been away too long. D. Gilbert, 32. Coming to Nicaragua for a few months in January. I'm 25 and looking at retirement destinations. I wish I could be 25 and looking at retirement destinations. What? I think I'm going to lean towards Grenada to start. What do you think? Okay, so I confused some people. I need to go back and answer this because it was on the questions on the show. So I like Grenada as the first place to visit, but I like it when you visit treating it like a tourist. So give Grenada a couple weeks, 2 weeks in Grenada. I think you should move on under normal circumstances after that, because it is it is a tourist destination, right? So it doesn't have that longevity that other places do. As a non-Nicaraguans, being there is very oil and water. You are always an outsider because you're in a tourist zone. Like if I go and live in Cancun, I'm always going to be on the outside. Even though I speak Spanish and have no desire to be on the outside, and my CEO grew up in Cancun, I'm never going to break that barrier. I may make some friends that are local and get invited to a few things, but I'm never going to not be a tourist in Cancun. I will now, if I go to Grenada, okay, for everyone, Marcela got her radiotherapy. Now she has to wait an hour for the taxi, but she got her radiation finally. She's been there since, I want to say 7 o'clock in the morning. She is very dizzy right now. But she got her radiation, which is very important. So Granada, unless your goal is to feel like a forever tourist in the city you live in, which a few people do like, but not very many, then I think it's a really bad choice long term. And my own experiences, when we first moved to Nicaragua in 2015, we chose Granada not thinking about it at all. And the experience almost caused us to not move to Nicaragua. It took years for me to convince my wife that Nicaragua was more than Granada. Even though we had been to lots of places, she couldn't get over the way that she felt in Granada. Once we moved to LEòN, she was like, oh, different world. Absolutely loves it, wouldn't live anywhere else. So it's a very important aspect to consider that just the day-to-day life in the two is very different. It's also a much smaller city, has many fewer resources, but it's really close to the capital, so in some ways it has a lot of resources, right? It's a nice city. I like going there for the weekend. Marcela used to live there as well long ago. It does have a lot more restaurants, but the cost of living is much higher. Many things are, between 15% and 100% more than in LEòN. So you feel that over time. Cost of living isn't double, but it's easily 50% higher. So you really notice that that taxi, that dinner, that every little thing is just, oh, that was a little bit more. And we live in a small city. So why is everything so expensive? We live in a small place, right? So it's really good for your first several days and maybe even a week or two, because it really is that soft landing, but you're not landing, right? You're coming to explore, and so getting a little bit of time in Granada. Granada is a great place to acclimate, right? You're going to hit some museums. You're going to go to a variety of restaurants. You're going to remember that you're a tourist the whole time. You're going to do some touristy things. Everybody needs to get the tourism out of their system. What amazes me is how many people... I've moved to many countries, right? So I have a different feel when I move to a new place. If I'm heading into a new country, I very much am out of tourist mode. I am in get an apartment, get it furnished, get it figured out, move in, make it life, get my computer set up, and get on with things mode, and then I become a tourist later. But most people, just in general, only ever move once in their lives, and when they do, they often cannot resist being a tourist in the place that they are. And so I talk to so many people who are like, we moved to Nicaragua, especially they have kids, and instead of being like, okay, you're now at this really fragile point of your existence, you need to just shut everything down and focus on decision making about where you are and getting the right apartment and all those things so that you have a successful life from now. Almost all, 75% at least, of people come and go, okay, that all makes logical sense, but my kids expressed a desire to not do that, so we're not going to. And you're like, what now? And they will take days or weeks or months and just go into, we're on vacation mode, and forget that they're moving, and because they're in a new location, just act like they're vacationing, which they are not doing. This is where they live, and spend all their time going to see things that they could go see anytime because they live here, and then often fail, right? So we had this one family who came down. They spent their entire relocation budget on hotels and pools and all these things to have fun with the kids. They never, ever managed to figure anything out. They never got an apartment. They never went to the grocery store. They never got to a point that they were comfortable. The kids were like, oh, that was fun, but we don't like living in a hotel like we're tourists for forever. And then they didn't have an apartment to go to. And that was it. And the father had to return to the U.S. for work. They hadn't come up with a way for him to work. So then they were like, well, now we don't feel like tourists, but we don't have a home. What do we do? And they panicked and returned. And they never even tried to move to Nicaragua, but they got on the plane and flew here and then just gave up before they ever even tried. And you're like, wow, you took all those kids out of school, sold your home, did all these things, and never had the slightest intention of ever trying to find a place to live. So I I do recommend just a little bit of time in Granada. It's a good place to start. Get some of that out of your system, and then seriously go and investigate the country from there, and go stay farther south, farther north, up in the mountains, and so forth, and do less touristy things and do a lot more. Would this be a place I'd like to live things? Right? Go try eating at the local breakfast place, walk around, check out the shops, the normal shops, the grocery stores, try cooking at home, and stuff. How's driving been? So I've been driving here for 10 years, so I'm way past the point that it registers in any way that I'm driving. Like, it's as casual to me as driving anywhere. And I've lived in places like Spain, Greece, and Italy, where driving is truly hard and an adventure. Here it's not at all. Here it's just slow sometimes, right? Like, I should point out an exciting thing. I need to put it on a video. I drove out. It may have been last night. I took my kids to Dr. Coffee, our local cafe, and as I pulled out of our driveway, I said, "Wait a second. Why is something different?" Then I'm like, I can see everything. And I'm thinking, well, I'm in the new car. I don't drive it that often. Or my brights are just so bright that I can say, no, that's not it. Then I'm like, wait, that's a street light. But that's been in pitch darkness for, I don't know, 2 years. And I'm like, wait, this light is white. That's what's throwing me off, because my headlights in my car are white, but the street lamps are sodium. There's evaporated sodium, so they're yellow. And I'm like, wait a second. And I look down the street, and the entire street is lit up, and it's all bright white LEDs. I'm like, they snuck through my street since the last time I came out my door, and the entire street is lit by LEDs. It was lit by a very, very few poorly lit, really old, sporadically working sodium vapor bulbs. And now it's all brand new LEDs everywhere. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, holy cow, this is so cool. And then we went to Dr. Coffee, and I like to park at the church because at night, like, no one's going there. And so it's just way easier to drive. So I pull in and I look, and the entire main square of Suceava, we're the secondary city here in the binary cities, all in LED lights. It was so cool. I don't know how far it goes, but all through our part of Suceava, everything is new LED lights. We are so much better lit. It was so dark before, and we hate those old yellow lights. Like, they kind of have a mood, right? It's kind of okay, but they're not energy efficient. They're not reliable, and they're not even. This is such a change. I'm so excited. So I've been driving here a really long time. So to me, it's as casual can be. I find it a very easy driving environment. That said, I don't recommend that tourists decide under normal circumstances to drive casually. It's just not. I don't recommend that basically anywhere. But here, it's so cheap and easy to hire someone and to hire their car that it's just so easy. But this is poignant from Barley Brothers, since my car was in an accident today. That's why the show started late, and I have to go deal with my insurance again for my car being parked and being hit first thing in the morning. So is there auto insurance there? There absolutely is, completely required by law. You must have it at all times. And it is checked for at a rate you cannot imagine. Assume every time you drive, you will be asked for your insurance. Like, as long as you got your insurance registration and your license are good, you're probably good. And you have your emergency equipment in the car, which is like fire extinguisher and triangle, reflective triangle, and that kind of stuff. Those things are required by law. But as long as you got that stuff, police stops are so easy. Here's my stuff. All right, good. Have a good day. But you got to have insurance. You got to have it at all times. You always have to have it on you. Is it similar to U.S. and Canada? I think, yeah. I mean, it's cheaper, but I don't think it's really that different. You can get private insurance, or you can get from the government. Everyone says get the government. It's just you get better prices, and they really guarantee it. Like, no one ever has problems with it, so a lot of people just use that. Janet says, it's a really long explanation, so I have to tell you the whole story later. Okie dokie. Must be the Claro upsell. Kang unit. I'm coming in September 22nd to 28th, so that's in almost 3.5 weeks. Do you think I should stay all days in Managua as home base? I have to go 7 nights. What are you doing, Kang? He's Canadian, just in case that matters. Well, as a Canadian, no, you would not stay in Managua as a home base. Managua, there are situations where okay. I'm gonna get this in a second. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. But there are situations where I would stay in Managua, but they're rare, very rare. If I was really considering Managua as a place I wanted to live, I might do that. But in general, Managua is not part of your tourism for the country. The only thing that makes Managua good for that is, one, it does have a lot of infrastructure. So, I want to see things during the day. In the evening, I want to come back to Managua, and I'm going to eat at the cool Managua restaurants and stay in a fancy hotel. Well, you're pretty much going to do that in Managua. Okay, and you want to go in the morning by bus somewhere and come back by bus. But those aren't things that you generally would want to do. That'd be very hard. You'd be doing your travel super cheap, but on very expert level. So I wouldn't generally recommend that. What you're going to want to do is move to the place you want to see, because everything's too far away. We have great public transportation and it's super cheap, but it doesn't tend to run at night. So when we get trains in the future, we expect this to change dramatically. It's going to really change Nicaragua. But for now, our amazing bus systems pretty much shut down at twilight. The last ones, and they're risky, leave, for example, leave LEòN at, say, 6:30. And you'd better know what you're doing, because missing that bus is really easy. And then it's going to get into Managua at around 8:30. So that's kind of late. But if you think about, like, I went to LEòN, I wanted to see things for the day. Getting dinner and making it to the bus before 6:30, and there's generally a line for the last bus, probably not something you want to gamble on, right? That's really pushing it. And you had to come out in the mornings. Your day is super short. You're spending all your time on the buses. But if you went to LEòN, stayed in LEòN, and then went to Matagalpa and stayed in Matagalpa, and then you came down to Granada and stayed in Granada, and you went to Ometepe and stayed in Ometepe, you're getting real time in those places, seeing different parts of the country instead of traveling over the same thing over and over again, and probably much cheaper. More work, because you're not going back to the same hotel every night, but overall, it's going to be way better. That's how people do it. Nobody does Managua as a home base for something like that. It's too hard. I'm going to jump down. Canadian Patricia says, is Marcela in Managua? She is. I assume taxis would be readily available there. They are. I suppose an hour is better than mañana. It is. That is all true. But Marcela wrote to me and wanted to respond. I'm not sure why she wasn't able to respond there, but she wanted me to let you know, Patricia, that maybe she just can't write in English. She has taxis available, but she's by herself, as she often is, and she doesn't feel comfortable taking random taxis, even using InDrive. So she is waiting for someone she knows. She's from Managua. She grew up there. She's lived there for forever, pretty much. Yes, she lived in Granada for a little while, and technically she lives in LEòN now, but Managua has always been her home, and she's heading back to her mom's house. So she knows many taxi drivers in the city. So if she was to call on InDrive, it easily would take 10 to 15 minutes, and once in a while you get a hassle and it takes 30. By waiting an hour, she gets the comfort of someone that she knows picking her up, and she's very dizzy. She's just had radiation, so she's not like completely on the ball and super awake and super on top of things. So being in a stranger's taxi, there's always just a little bit of risk, and as a single woman traveling around the big city, when she can just wait a little while to get a taxi and feel comfortable with it, she's going to do that. So she does that a lot. All right, so answer that. One of the things I like to do is attend Mass in one of those old churches in Granada. Have you been to one? I'm a Roman Catholic. So, Mark, I don't believe that I have been to Mass in Grenada, if that's your question. Have I been to Mass in Nicaragua? Yes, I have, but not in Grenada. Was it one of those old churches? Yes, here, right? Because we have very grand old churches in LEòN too. I get it. Grenada probably has better ones. We have the cathedral. If you want the grand church of Nicaragua, that's LEòN. But if you want the really cool older architecture, then probably Grenada. But if you want, so I was talking to, and yes, one of my clients is a monastery, and I was discussing the structures of LEòN, and one of the things, they were very excited at the monastery. So I grew up by a monastery that's a friend monastery with the monastery that I work for, and one of the things that they found really interesting about LEòN is that every major type of Catholic church, for lack of a better term, exists in LEòN, whereas almost all cities lack something. So Grenada does not have all these things. Here in LEòN, we have churches, as you would expect. We have cathedrals, which is sometimes surprising. We have hermitages, ermitas, ermitas, that's what it is. We have ermitas, which are hermitages, multiple. We have shrines. We have the basilica. We have convents and conventos, monasteries. I can't remember. There were so many things, all in one city. And so if you're looking for one of the best shrines, you'll want to go to the one in Guadalupe. If you're looking for the giant basilica, you'll want to go to LEòN. A lot of different things. So LEòN is really good for that, and all over the country. There's a lot of grand old churches. Some are in Managua. Certainly Grenada is either number one or number two for that, with LEòN being the other. But lots of cities are going to have a lot of cool old churches as well. So don't think you're limited to those. And give me just a second. Got to let the doggy out. She needs something. What is it? What is it? Something going on out there? The little boy doesn't care. Yeah. I didn't even know you were here, little boy. Hi. Hi, handsome. Yeah, what you doing? What you doing? Oh, you're in a mood. You're in a mood, yeah. Oh. I didn't even realize my Boston Terrier was in here. He's apparently been here since the start of the show. I guess I remember getting up to let him in. I was talking to you guys and just forgot that he was here. Anyway, he's under my desk and being so sweet. Have you run into Jack Pittman at all? So funny enough, I've never run into Jack in person, but we have done shows together. And Luke and I were down the street from him and trying to get him to come hang out with us, but he was busy. Couldn't come hang out with us. He's like, you have to give me more warning. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, I do know Jack. 110 Cupcake 123. Scott, if you were to relocate within Nicaragua, what city would it be? Obviously, Matagalpa. Matagalpa is my favorite city. LEòN is not. Right? LEòN is my wife's favorite city. She likes the heat and the beach more than I do. Obviously, I love LEòN. Very happy here. I love the people and the culture, but I do prefer Matagalpa. I love mountain towns. Just how I am, and I like the cooler temperatures. So Matagalpa is far and away my favorite city. It's also more urbane than LEòN. LEòN is more youthful. I like that. But so if we were to rule out Matagalpa because it's my far and away first choice, it's hard to say. I think, honestly, I think at this point, if I wasn't in Matagalpa, I might honestly pick Managua. I do really enjoy Managua, and importantly, my children prefer Managua. So just like I'm in LEòN for my wife, if I wasn't here, I'd probably end up in Managua for my children. They would be very happy with that move. I mean, if I told them right now, hey, we decided to buy a place in Managua, they'd be like half in the car while we'd still be like, wait, we didn't say we were moving yet. They'd be like, nope, get in the car. Like, we're going. And they love city life, which I do too, but they love it more than me. And they would just be head over heels, I think, if our home base was in the city. And if things go well, I would not be surprised if we didn't end up eventually getting an apartment in the city so that we're able to be there in our own space, right? They do really enjoy going to hotels. So if we're in a position where we could have our own like reasonable apartment there, you know, they love the DoubleTree. They love getting cookies. The DoubleTree feels like home to them a little bit because we go there, I don't know, once a month or so, and for 1 or 2 nights, normally 1 night, but once in a while, 2 nights. So it's not a ton of time, but and we joke about this. We're Hilton Gold members, but we use Hiltons everywhere, right? When I'm in Guatemala City and I need a place quick, I use the Hilton. When I'm in like just anywhere, I use the Hilton. When I'm transiting places, I don't tend to use the Hilton when I'm staying for any length of time. So like we were in Buenos Aires, we use Hilton on our first night. We fly in, we stay at a Hilton. It makes our transition easy. We know we're in a big hotel. We know, but then we move to an Airbnb once we're going to be there for more days. Right. But if we're going through an airport, if I'm heading down to San Jose and I'm going to go through the airport, I'm staying at the Hilton and so forth. And so because of that, you know, we have all the Hilton cards, all the Hilton things, all the Hilton benefits, tons of points. We can stay free at any Hilton anytime. So they're always like, we're going to the Hilton DoubleTree. We're gold members. And we always get upgraded rooms and whatever. And they give you tons of bottled water and just whatever. But so we go there quite often because they specifically they don't want to go back to America. They don't want to be in an American cultural thing, but they do appreciate the occasional day of Americanism where they just have carpeting and they can blast air conditioning and they have blasting hot water and all kinds of things. I do need to mention, I have not had a chance to take a shower with it yet, but this afternoon, so it's not like I didn't take a shower. Just this afternoon, we had our suicide shower in my bathroom, me and my wife's bathroom, replaced with inline hot water. So I will be reporting back very soon as to how it is. But this is a huge deal living here. We finally tracked it down, so I will be talking about the price, how it works, and all that. Let me tell you, my kids are so excited to have that. Suicide showers are hard, and hopefully this is not. But that's one of the things that we really like when we're staying in Managua. So there is this like, oh, we wouldn't want to really give that up. But almost certainly Matagalpa and Managua are the biggest consideration cities. Certainly Esteli is a good choice. Masaya is an okay choice. I really like Carazo, so the small cities like Hinotepe I really like. I'd be perfectly happy in Rivas. I think Boaco and Huigalpa are probably pretty good, but I haven't spent time there. Same thing with Acatal. Starts to get pretty far north, but sometimes you want to do things up north, so that could make sense. Not a huge fan of Chinandega. I like going there for some things, but not probably never to live in. There's only so many cities here, right? Jinotega is really nice. It's so remote. I'm torn because I love the city. I think the city's really beautiful. I love the weather. But it's so short on restaurants and things. It's tough. It's a great, like, if they just had more things, it might be my favorite city. But it does not. So, yeah, hope that answers the question. Marcela, Jack Pittman, relocate. D. Gilbert 32. What's a feasible budget for Granada? I have a house rented for $350 a month. Very nice. That's a good price. Is it reasonable to have all my expenses total under $850? Can you do it? Sure. As a single person, obviously food is going to be almost all of your budget. Work that out per day. You're looking at let's bring it up a little bit. Let's make it $950, and that gives us $20 per day to work with. See what I did there, right? Just for easy math. If you were going for a total budget of $950 and you had your house taken care of, assuming that is all of your utilities, your internet and your power and your water and everything are included with the house rental, then having $600 for 30 days at giving you $20 a day to do the things you want to do obviously is incredibly lean. What can you do on $20 a day? Can you eat for that? Yes. Can you get breakfast for $3? Yes, you can. Can you get lunch for $4? Yes, you can. Can you get dinner for $10? Yes, you can. That's $17. Where are you going to go with that extra $3? Are you just staying in Granada? You're not really going anywhere? Oh, then you're fine. Do you need to take a taxi anywhere? No, not if you're staying downtown. I can't remember ever taking a taxi in Granada when I lived there. When I don't, obviously I do. I walked everywhere. It's a tiny city. So, and there's a ton of it you don't really want to walk to. I mean, I might, but normal people wouldn't. So if you're just walking around downtown, you want to go see those old churches that I think Mark mentioned, and you want to go see the waterfront, and you want to go check out the museums, and you want to go, and maybe you don't want 3 meals a day. That might be a bit much. And maybe you don't want to spend $10 on that last meal. Fine. Maybe you want to cook at home and only eat 2 meals a day. Oh, there's a lot of things you can do to get that budget down. It depends how touristy you are, what you want to do. And you're trying to come in under that, right? At $8.50, not $9.50. So, but it is important to understand $20 a day is not a ton. If you are not going out some days, which would be kind of weird when you have that little time. But, for me, I'm in the office, right? So for me, if you were like, Scott, can you make it today for only $20 and you don't have to feed your kids? Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so I'm going to eat a yogurt and some gallo pinto, maybe a little bit of cheese. My day is $2, right? And I'm just sitting here working and my house is paid for. So, yeah, I made it the whole day for $2. We're good to go, right? So that's very feasible, but you're going to be on vacation, presumably, in a new country, so you're probably going to want to do a bunch of things. So it will be tough to keep the budget that small, but yeah, obviously you can do it. Nicaraguans often live on $200 a month, but they often live with their parents, so they're not paying rent out of that, but they're doing everything that they need for about $200. Not including rent, and surviving, right? It's hard. They're doing it in conjunction with family. They know all the ins and outs. They're not living in downtown Granada, but that's what they're doing it for. So the amount of money you actually have to work with is enough to be middle class here. But as a tourist, it's so hard to know how to spend your money well. That's really the challenge. Brent says, Jack's indexed move to Nicaragua guide video is really well done. It is. I've seen it. Hope he's doing well. Last I talked to him, he's doing great. I guess people pop in and out of YouTubing. He has not popped out of YouTubing. He popped out of Nicaragua YouTubing. He found Nicaragua YouTubing to be demoralizing because people treated him terribly, and it is a very abusive area of YouTube, of social media. So you really got to be prepared for just how much hate and dismissiveness you're going to get, and bullying and trolling when in that space. And so he is a professional video game YouTuber and does quite well. So that's really his space, and that he's able to be very happy doing that. He did a very emotional kind of goodbye to YouTube for the Nicaragua space and kind of talked about it a little bit. And he also carries a lot of guilt about, because he's American like me, he carries a lot of personal guilt just around being American and the things that the United States has done here. He once took out an ad on television here and just did an apology from him to the Nicaraguan people. Like, that's how seriously he takes it. So it's draining for him to try to do this stuff. Whereas I'm able to kind of thick-skin it a little bit more and stick to it. Kanyu says, got it? I thought things would be nearby. I mean, there are things nearby, but not much. We're a good-sized country, so if you are from the United States, we are roughly the same size as New York State, which is not that much different than an Ohio or a Pennsylvania. So think about an Ohio, because we're shaped a little bit more like that, with Managua being a little bit like Columbus, And so you're central in a good sized state, and things are all over the place that you want to go to. But then imagine that the speed limit is 30 miles an hour instead of 80 miles an hour, and that there's traffic everywhere, and that people don't drive at night mostly. And really quickly you go, ah. So, for example, getting from Managua to LEòN, we're neighboring cities, is 2 hours. That's not terrible at all. But that's 2 hours with essentially nothing a tourist is going to do in between. If you were living here, there's lots to do in between. But as a tourist, you're going to want to get from Managua to LEòN. Great. That's 2 hours here. If you want to go back, that's 2 hours back. If you want to go to Matagalpa, that's 3 or 4 hours to Matagalpa, probably 3. Up and 3 hours back. That's 6 hours during the day to go there. If you want to go to Jinotega, it's another hour it's 45 minutes out of Managua to, Matagalpa to there. So now you're looking at, just to see 1 hour in Jinotega for the day, you need 8 hours of buses. And that's shifting buses. That's a lot of stress going between buses. Now, if you had a private driver, and we're staying in Managua, you could make it happen much easier. I still wouldn't recommend it. That's why I didn't bring that up. But you could improve that, but at high cost by paying for a private driver all the time. Whereas if you go just 2 hours from Managua to LEòN, spend the night, then go from LEòN to Matagalpa, you can do a total of whatever that is, 5 hours, 5.5 hours driving over 2 days rather than having to do 6 hours in a single day. That gets way better real fast. And you're seeing different routes rather than, Managua sits on a lake. So you've got the road that goes to LEòN and the road that goes to the mountains. You're going to do those two roads over and over again, depending on where you're going. And then if you go south, you take the south road. There's really about 4 roads going out of the city, but that's it. Whereas if you're going from place to place, you may zip in a lot, you may cross things and just see a lot more for the same amount of driving. Rowdy Mobile says, hey, Scott, I have a question. I have lots of questions, but I'll just start with one for the investor visa. Who do I need to go to see about that? So realistically, you're going to want to start with a lawyer. Just start there. So the first thing is you probably don't want to do it. Let's just give you the high level. Step back and say, there's almost no chance you want to do this, right? Yes, it may be a path to residency. You need to ask a bunch of questions and make sure you really have logical answers. Take a deep breath, spend a little time, sit down with the family. I don't know all the people, right? And be like, okay, what is it we really want? And make sure you're writing down goals, right? Don't write things you think get you your goals. Write down your goals. Put them on paper, right? Our goal is we want to be able to stay in Nicaragua for X amount of time. We want to, whatever, right? We want to build a way to help people with unemployment or whatever. Get your real goals on paper. Then we can talk about, does residency meet those goals? If residency meets those goals, which type of residency meets those goals, or which things let you have residency, right? You want to build up from your goals, not start with how do I do this thing, because almost everyone who figures out how to do that thing will eventually find that either that isn't the thing they want to do, or worse, it wasn't the thing they wanted to do, and now it's too late and they did it anyway. So you really want to make sure that you answer those questions first. Assuming you did answer those questions, we'll just give you the benefit of the doubt, then the process is move to Nicaragua, spend enough time to really answer your own questions, right? You're really comfortable with the country. You're really comfortable with this is where you want to get residency, really comfortable that residency is the right thing for you. You have a decent idea of where in the country you want to be, right? Same as you're moving to the U.S. You don't move to the U.S., you move to New York. You move to New York City. You move to the Adirondacks. You move to Niagara Falls. You move to the Finger Lakes. You move to the Capital Region, right? That's reasonable, but moving to the U.S. is not, right? You got to narrow it down. So do those things, get those answers in Nicaragua, and then have some idea of a business, of how business works, not a business, but how business works here, what things actually make sense. And then, and this could be a few months. We're not talking about like this. It doesn't have to be a really big thing. Then the step is, now you talk to a lawyer, right? You could talk to a lawyer before that and just get some ideas, but you go to a lawyer and say, okay, I've gone through all these steps. Now I know I do want investor residency. Now I need my lawyer to help me talk through which different programs of that are going to qualify or should qualify or might be able to be argued to be qualified. And you can talk about what you want to do and what your goals are. Then you and your lawyer, or just your lawyer on your behalf, will go talk to the Department of Tourism in tour and have a conversation with them and say, will they sign off on your business plan? Almost certainly they will. Now, I've never really heard of them saying no. You do that, then you and your lawyer go and form your business, get all your ducks in a row, and then you begin your business. And that's about it, right? The system is quite simple, but there's a lot of, you really have to answer some things first, or you're going to put yourself in a very dangerous position, or a dangerous financially position. Kang Unit says, yeah, I got it. I just wanted to stay in one home base, but I'll shift around. I'm a tourist. Yeah, I totally get that. If you were going to stay in one home base, the place you would generally stay is Granada, because it itself is a tourist destination. So you would get, let's say you're staying a week, I think you said, you would get 2 or 3 days of, well, the thing I'm going to do is see Granada by doing that. But no place is close. If you're taking private cars places, then that will work fine. If you're taking buses, then you're stuck. But it's you're trying to see a country, not a city. So there's very few countries in the world where you could stay and be like, I'm going to go see a country and just pick a city. If you're doing England, imagine being like, well, I'm just going to stay in London to see the country. That doesn't really work. You can just stay in London, but you're just going to see London, right? If you go to Paris, you're just going to see Paris. If you're going to Rome, you're just going to see Rome. You don't stay in Rome and say, well, I'm launching out to see Italy. You can't make it to most of the country in a single day. So it wouldn't be possible. And in the U.S., it's because of the travel times, it would be like going to an Iowa and being like, okay, I want to see all of Iowa, but I'm going to stay in Des Moines. But then imagine that Iowa is 8 times the size that it actually is. Not because Nicaragua is that much larger than Iowa. It is larger than Iowa, but it's not that much larger than Iowa. But when you take into account how slow the travel is, and that car and bus are the only options to most places, then suddenly it's the equivalent of every direction growing by more than double. And that makes the entire thing 4 or 6 times the size. And then you have to take into account that some places like the Corn Islands must be arrived at by plane. Then it's like, so you have to fly to another destination. Or if you're going to Ometepe, you have to get all the way down to Rivas, get to San Jorge, and then take the ferry to Ometepe. Can you do that as a day trip from Managua or Granada? Yes, you can. But if you leave at 6 a.m., it's going to be 10 or 11 by the time you get to the island. You're going to get, maybe 5 hours on the island if you are super lucky. And then you're going to be getting back into Managua so late that you're just going to be ordering pizza to your hotel room and calling it a night and not getting enough sleep before doing the same thing the next day. And you will not have really seen Ometepe. It's unbelievably beautiful. Even if you can only go during the day, sure, go for it. But trust me, spending the night on Ometepe is part of the charm. If you're going to go out to the island, you definitely want to sleep there, because once all the day packers are gone and you're there and it is silent and you are trapped on the island, that's when the magic happens, right? Like, you're missing the Ometepe experience if you don't do that. So, Lester Lauren Lozano says, have you heard about solar-powered air conditioners? Are they available? I have never seen a solar-powered air conditioner, but I wouldn't expect to. I'm unclear as to their advantage, because what we have commonly here is just we have solar power in a much more flexible way than a lot of countries. So if you wanted... so air conditioners are cheap and plentiful. We can get them. I think someone was getting them for $350 the other day. We get pretty good deals at like $380. We generally, if you're not really getting a good deal, you can get a really good one at $450. But we're getting big 220-watt industrial split units. These things will I wish I could. I can't quite reach the camera. That's how far away it is. But I got one up here, right? That cools the room down in 2 minutes. $450, right? That's what we pay typically. and we can just add solar to the house and have solar for the whole house. So there isn't a big advantage to having a just solar-powered air conditioner, other than that's super convenient. I'm going to buy a solar-powered air conditioner. It's a single unit. I'm going to plug it in, and voila. I love that idea. Like, that sounds fantastic. But if I'm going to pay to have solar and all the things to make that happen, I'm probably just going to pay for more solar and have solar-powered everything rather than solar-powered air conditioner. Because I want solar-powered hot water heaters. I want solar-powered computers and studio lights and TVs and all those things. Obviously, the air conditioning takes up the vast majority of the total power that we use, but it would be nice to have it for other things too. So I will keep an eye out for that. I can see why that would be really interesting, but there's a lot of questions, like, does it only work when your air conditioning unit is mounted on the south-facing wall, or what all happens? So Brent says, interesting about Matagalpa being more urbane. So it's more culturally authentic or something? I'll definitely be getting up there next trip. So it's too bad Luke's not here because he lives up there. But so Matagalpa is definitely very authentic, but a different culture within Nicaragua. So it's authentically different. And like the people look different and everything. Like it's a different racial group. Like it's historically quite different. And but the biggest deal is that if you take a Chinandega or a LEòN or a Granada and look at the density of our city center and then our outer areas. Now, we don't have suburbs, right? It's not like the United States where you've got like core as city center and then this massive suburban zone. We don't have that. We have downtown, as you can walk, and then we have the core barrios around that are the city center. And in almost all these cities, we're surrounded by farmland. So we just kind of blend into the farmland. Again, not like the U.S. does, where it goes on for forever, but we don't have like this hard break, and we don't have a city wall, whatever. Matagalpa has a lot of people in a tight zone, and it has big mountains and a river. So the people are really packed in, and it has taller buildings and stuff. We don't build tall buildings in LEòN. Why bother? Right? There's no reason to go up. We can always go out. There's lots of empty land. And in fact, if you were to go to like the Alcaldía and be like, hey, I want to build up, they'd be like, don't, please build out. We need to cover space. If you have the money to go to a third floor, why don't you buy the building next door, knock down some eyesore that's abandoned or it's in terrible disrepair, and put a beautiful first floor with access to the street and stuff there instead, and it'll cost you less than going up, and it'll do more for the city. That's hard to turn down, right? So that's what's going to happen in LEòN, but in Matagalpa, they don't have that free space. They got to go up. So they've got multi-story. They got like 8 and 10-story buildings downtown. Even though they're a smaller city, it feels like a city, but LEòN never feels like a city, simply because of the way that we're built. So Matagalpa is very different in that way, and they have a lot more of just, when you walk through the city, it feels like you're walking through a city. I don't know how else to put it. Like, there's just never a time in LEòN when I'm like, this is my city. It's my town. And I love it. But when I'm in Matagalpa, I'm like, this is a little city. It feels like a city. It's hard to really put into words. But even just going to simple single things, like going to Deja Vu, going to the Brooklyn Cafe, going to Diagon Alley. Just all those things. Like, they're so much more easily supported up there. None of that exists down here. We don't have things like that. Now, part of that is because we're a colonial city, and part of that is because we're smaller overall in the zone, and we're also a very inexpensive city, whereas Matagalpa is a very rich city with a medium cost of living. So things are a little bit more expensive up there, but the people have a lot more buying power on average. So people are going out to restaurants and doing things way more than they are in LEòN, and you feel that. So there's a lot of things that just make it feel like a much more vibrant urban environment, and LEòN feels a lot more like a giant village environment. Barley Brother says, so you have to drive down to Costa Rica every time for a border run. Yes. is that once a month, once every 3 months, it is technically twice a year, once every 180 days. You have to do 90 days. That's what you get on your initial time in the country. And then it is possible to extend it 3 times at 30 days each in country. Then at the end of 180 days, you must do a border run to Costa Rica, Mexico, or Belize, or farther afield. You could fly to Mexico, fly to Panama. Those are all fine. And that's it. So because it's twice a year, it's so minor. And for barley, consider if you would ever maybe visit the US or Canada, or maybe want to go on vacation and go head down to Panama, right? Panama's really close and awesome. Colombia is not very far away. Mexico's a hop, skip, and a jump. Would you ever go to any of those places once a year? And we're about to get flights to Spain. If you like going to Europe, you do that once a year. You know, vacation. A lot of Americans plan on one foreign vacation per year. Sure, great. I was doing that for years. But because of that, I only had to do a border run. In all my years of being a tourist in Nicaragua, I had to do one border run because my lifestyle naturally refreshed my passport over and over and over again otherwise. So it was very easy to deal with. Now, if you live in a really remote part of Nicaragua, far from Piñas Blancas, the Costa Rican border crossing, and you never travel anywhere else, and you really have to do it twice a year, or you don't get approval to do the extensions, and you're stuck doing it 4 times a year, can it become cumbersome? Yes, it can. Have I ever actually met a person who had it become cumbersome? I have not. No. So it's rare. I think the average person quite safely falls into it's not a big deal category. And once you do it and know how to do it, like, it really gets easy. Probably says, we hope you keep making videos, Scott. Your videos are a gem for people looking to move to Nicaragua. Well, thank you very much. I've been doing this for a long time now. I'm kind of setting records for one of the longest daily vlogs ever, not just of Nicaragua, not just of travel, like, period. People are famous for doing far, far less, so that's kind of cool. And if it comes down to actual vlogging, now, the show has not missed a show in, like, we're coming up on 4 years since the last time we missed an episode, but if you go with a general daily show and include writing, we are just hitting 25 years of me recording my life every day. 25 years. So I'm probably not going to stop anytime soon. This is just who I am. At some point, it just became, like, my wife could not imagine our lives not being like this. My wife was joking the other day. We were arguing about some travel thing from years and years and years ago that I'm going to look up right now while we're sitting here. And she joked about, like, yep, well, we're going to have to look it up because every single thing in our lives is recorded somewhere and we can go search on it. And it's just very funny that because I've recorded every aspect of our lives, our entire lives, because I was blogging my daily life 2 years before I met my wife. So by the time she met me, our lives were so completely recorded that like, it's just always been part of our existence. And so it's just kind of very funny in that way. Let's see if I can. All right. So, this is funny. May 29th, 2012, München. I woke up to Liesel tapping me on the arm at 8. Daddy, the sun is up. Liesel's a firm believer in getting up with the sun. Oh my gosh, if she read this today, she'd be like, who was this? And she believes that everyone around her needs to believe this too. She's been like this for months. Dominica was up and showered, then we all went down to the restaurant in the hostel for our free breakfast that we received for not getting the baby bed that we had ordered. Breakfast was nice, nothing special. I brought the laptop down with me and managed to upload all of the SGL, that's my blog, updates, but failed to upload more than 4 pictures to Flickr while I was there because the uploads kept timing out. This is going to be tough. We went back up to the room and Luciana fell asleep. Then Dominica and Liesel decided to take a nap. It started raining the first It started raining, first lightly, then quite hard. We looked at the weather forecast, and it is rain and thunderstorms all week. So I returned to the lobby and plugged in my laptop so that I could work on updates and see if I could get any more pictures to upload, and on and on and on. And oh my gosh, that was 5% of the daily update. I should do a vlog where I read my old 20 years of daily updates. Like that would be something. So the thing that happened was at some point we took a wrong train, and we were arguing about which train it was. But where did we make the mistake and go the wrong way? At some point, we took the wrong train and we ended up on the wrong side of Europe because of a bad train decision. Like we ended up in France and we're trying to go to Austria. I really do need to go through and read all of these. Like, that's really cool. Sorry, I'm getting nostalgic on my own updates. This is one of the reasons that I was so adamant about making making all these videos, making all these blog posts over the years, because does this link still work? Oh my gosh, it does. Cool. We have gone back our entire lives, because I was 24 when I started blogging my daily life. Everything. Every time we watched a movie, every time we, started a new show, moved to a new house, went on vacation, did a thing, we wrote it down. And now that I do the vlog every day, it's different, and it's not the same. I'm not recording. In 2021, it was a little bit more like that, but by 2022, it started getting a little bit less, and by 2023, we were really just talking about other things. And my wife would be a little bit like, okay, a little bit too much of our life on the show, but having having your life recorded where you can go back and see every little thing you did through your whole lives has been an amazing experience. And as much as she's like, I can't believe he does this, she also loves it. It'll be like, when did we watch that movie? And we'll be off by a decade. We can look it up, and I'll be like, it was raining, this happened, these people came over, here's what we had for dinner. And it's these long updates that just, it's really something. Anyway. Making videos, all that. Will I still be making videos? Probably. Mellow Ritmo, chili beats and relaxing vibes. I hope to be your neighbor soon. Saludos, futuro vecino. Awesome. When you coming, and where are you looking at being? Brent says, I kind of don't get taking personal responsibility for the evils of your government. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment behind it, but anyway, no doubt he's a good dude. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I get it. Like, we certainly didn't do these things. We certainly don't support that they did these things. Why should we feel guilty about it? We should not, right? And no one's asking us to. But Mark says, I want to spend a few days in different places while I'm there, looking at 2 or 3 weeks. There, Matagalpa is one place I want to go, and the islets of Grenada and Macizo Expeditions. I don't know what that is exactly. Is that just a company? Spend a few days in different places while I'm there, looking at 2 or 3 weeks there, Matagalpa. 2 or 3 weeks here. And Matagalpa is one place that you want to go. I get it. So the Islets of Grenada, you do a boat tour of them. Very cool. Definitely do that. I really recommend Ometepe, especially if you're here for 2 to 3 weeks. You got to see Ometepe, got to see LEòN, got to see San Juan del Sur, Grenada, in case we didn't say it. You should see Managua, but you can skip Managua. If you live here, you got to embrace Managua. But as a tourist, I totally understand why it's really hard to get. So don't feel any pressure. Messiah, though, generally worth it. If Messiah Volcano happens to be available, that's got to be done. there's an awful lot to do. Obviously, hit the beach at some point. Janet says you can ride a bus down to the border if you want to, which is what I do if I'm doing it. Janet says, I need your daily post. I can't handle my day without it. Well, thank you. Brent says, if a person only has Nicaragua, Costa Rica stamps in their passport, are they more likely to be asked to get residency than if they actually traveled more? Yes. So I don't think where the stamps are is going to matter at all. I'd be really surprised by that. It's purely, Nicaragua cares how many days you have spent in the country. That's it. They don't care where your not in country days are. Right? If it's Nicaragua and Costa Rica, if it's Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and the United States, if it's Nicaragua, Algeria, South Africa, Thailand, Russia, Canada, Argentina, Nicaragua, as long as the Nicaragua is X days, that's all they care about. I don't think they even consider the rest of it. Maybe if you go to some country that they're really not friendly with, maybe they consider that in some negative light, but from a day perspective, they're not counting, spent 2 days in Costa Rica, but 10 in Chile, so they're cool, right? But, they spent 12 days in Costa Rica. Lame, right? They're not like that. That'd be pretty weird. So, yeah. Sorry, still caught up looking through these videos. Where could that train disaster have been? Theoretically speaking, this is Barley. Does a person with Honduran citizenship need to make border runs in Nicaragua? They do not. So they can't, right? So if you're Honduran, you are at home, right? So our border is the CA4. Now, I don't know all the nuances that a Honduran can do when they're in Nicaragua, because it's never going to apply to me. And there aren't that many people that it does apply to. But the border zone, Nicaragua and Honduras and Salvador and Guatemala, are inside a single border. And so the idea of doing a border run when you're home is a little bit weird. Oh my gosh, I forgot about getting falafel in Zurich. That was delicious. Oh, wait, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so we were in Zurich. We were trying to go to München. We had gotten falafel. I can't believe this is the same day. Okay, so we got these falafel sandwiches on the waterfront in Zurich. This is in 2012. I remember standing and eating by the river. We walked back to the train station. We were very tired already and had probably walked 2 to 3 kilometers hauling all of our luggage behind already today, and that was wearing us out quickly. We got back to the train station without any issue, double-checked our train information, headed to the platform. In Switzerland, Germany, and France, we have never ever seen a train schedule be wrong, unlike Belgium where they appear to be incorrect about half the time, so we tend to panic when we have no need to do so. This is where our trouble began. We were so early for the train that we had to wait on the platform for a while. The first train came and went, but when the next train came, Dominica was sure that it was our train. It sure could have been. Sometimes they arrive quite early and sit on the platform for a while just because of how the schedule works out. Sometimes you get to a platform 30 minutes early and your train is already there. So when this train was 30 minutes early, I was surprised, but it was really a possibility, even if unlikely, that it was our train. I asked her if it was our train, and she said yes, and we boarded. Now, we've had this discussion over and over again on this trip. We can never trust just one person's judgment as to anything as to do with trains. We are constantly making mistakes and need everything double-checked, whether it is departure times, track numbers, or whatever. Now, to be fair, I did set about immediately attempting to double-check the train once we were on it. What I failed to do was walk down the platform and read the sign telling what train it was. When I asked Dominica if this was the train, I had assumed she had read that sign, and there was no way to misread that. But in fact, she had misunderstood my question and thought that I had read the sign. Unfortunately, we have so much luggage, and with the kids getting onto the train, and even doing something as simple as checking the exact time is a major exercise. So it probably took 10 minutes to get the luggage stowed, Luciana out of her harness that I was carrying her in, and the laptop plugged in. as it was out of juice and could not power up so that I could see the time. The moment that the laptop came up, I looked at the time and knew that we were 16 minutes before intended departure time. The instant that I saw the time, the train started to move. Crap. I knew what had happened instantly and looked at Dominica and said, "It's too early, this is the wrong train." We grabbed the first person we could find and asked where the train was going. Basel. Thank goodness, this could have been the express to Milan. In fact, that was a decently likely possibility. Basel was very likely the best case for the wrong train. But even so, our low-stress, easy train day just turned into a disaster. Basel is 50 minutes away in the wrong direction from München, so we had to rapidly come up with alternative travel plans. We found the Berlin run leaving Basel very shortly after when we would arrive, so it would be a rush, but we should be able to make it. That would take us up to the Rhine, past Freiburg, and get us to the east-west. Get us to the east-west run to München. So instead of 4 hours and no transfers, we are now 6.5 hours and 2 transfers. Sad face. For those who have never traveled with 2 little children and a ton of luggage, you really can't understand how painful a transfer is. To make a transfer, we have to pack for 10 minutes prior to arrival and watch the clock carefully the entire trip to make sure that we don't miss our prep window and get everything off of the train very quickly before the train leaves again. This is harder than it sounds and is physically strenuous and is a leading reason why we are in so much pain. Every train day results in a day of not being able to move my head from side to side because of the physical strain. Then we have to figure out in a split second how to navigate a new train station without the aid of English signs. And about 1 of 4 have no lifts, so we are stuck running everything up and down stairs, which is so hard that the easiest thing for me to do is actually pick up the stroller with Liesel in it and run the whole thing down in one shot, no matter how awkward or heavy it is. Then find the right platform for our next train, get to it, make sure that we are getting on the correct train, hardy har har, and load everything onto that train. Then it takes nearly 10 minutes for us to get all of the luggage stowed, release the children, and settled in. It is hard and it is stressful. Avoiding it even once is a really big deal, and each transfer is when we are terribly fearful that we will lose something else. It was a day like today when we lost my fleece jacket going from Bruges to Boppard 2 weeks ago. The laptop was dead this morning, so we used every moment possible on the first train and SBB line to charge it, as the DB trains often do not have power yet, but the SBB reliably does. Although I have been trying to figure out if this is because we mistakenly rode second class on DB for the first several times and should have been in first class, and since we have started using SBB, we knew to always look for first class. It might be something that simple. That transfer at Basel was fine. No spare time to get coffee or anything, but that was okay. We know the Basel station, and it is very low stress as stations go. In fact, it might be our lowest stress station. The ride up the Rhine was pretty short. We really didn't have time to relax. The rapid transfers take a toll on the girls too. They don't get a chance to settle in, and we don't let them nap or get set up with their toys, which is really tough. The ride is still long, and having almost nothing to do is hard for them, but Liesel remains pretty positive and is always excited about a new place and a new train. She's the best traveler ever. Anyway, that was some of my day, but that was the day that we accidentally went the completely wrong direction on the train and ended up doing this loop through France when we were supposed to be in Bavaria. And now I have to send that link to my wife. Mark says, buenas noches, Scott. Que descantes. Buenas noches a todos. Nos vemos la próxima semana. How are we doing? We got a fair number of people on. Not doing too badly. and I have to look up a city by map. I don't want to do it by looking it up in my records to see if I can zip. There it is, Bartenheim. Just picking the. I wonder if I could find the house that we stayed in. Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that town. Bartenheim was the first time that we had to take Luciana to a doctor in another country. Over the years, we've done it a lot, but that was the very first time, and we were like, oh boy. And, oh yeah. Stayed in a house out there somewhere. Boy, I remember walking that road. Oh my gosh. Crazy. Back when we thought we might move to France. What a wild life it is, you know? We spent so much time trying to figure out where we were going to live and traveling the world and trying different countries. And it's hard to believe now that there was a time that, like, we were so close to moving to Switzerland at one point. Almost moved to Austria, seriously considered France. Like, just so many places. Worked in London, worked in Belfast. All right, guys, don't be getting quiet on me. There we go. Monty Dreams 1. Hello, Scott. How is the food quality there compared to Europe, health-wise? We know the U.S. food is very poor. I mean, Europe is got to be better, I'm sure, right? Europe is just so good with food. Nicaragua has so much repetition in food and such a small variety. It's way better than the U.S., for sure. We feel much, much better all the time. And we're not getting all that weird GMO food, at least most of the time. It's easy to get pretty good stuff, but Europe really does shine on food. There's no no real comparison. Europe is definitely going to be better. Brent says, your recounting of train travel was harrowing. Well, good live stream tonight. Hasta la próxima and buenas noches a todos. I feel like we're losing a lot of people. Are we good to go for a while, or should this be our wrap-up time? We've gone enough time. I had a kind of stressful day. It's kind of late, so I'm okay either way. But we don't have a ton of people on. I guess we have a couple more than when I said it. But yeah, it's interesting going back and seeing those old stories, because it's been so long that to me it's like hearing a story of myself, you know? Checking all my devices, making sure I'm not missing anything with work. You guys are pretty quiet. I feel like I had something interesting to say on the show tonight, but I can't remember what it was. Cupcake says, Scott, off topic, but you lived in Spain. Can you compare the French and Spanish culture from an American perspective? Well, I can only compare it from an American perspective because that's the one I have. So let's give it a try. So I never lived in France. Let's be clear. I visited France and seriously considered it. Both are big places. So it's important to understand that the part of France that I spent time in is the Alsace, because that's where we were interested in living. And the part of Spain that I spent time in is Andalusia, because that was where we were interested in living. So primarily those are the areas that I would have to compare. And honestly, I don't think they're that different. Both being outside of Paris, France is very friendly and very rural. It's a very approachable country. Food is taken very seriously. You can say the same thing about Spain. It's hard to really compare the cultures. I do find things that are of note for me is in French culture, it is so like I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to go to the boulangerie and I'm going to start my day walking around the village and collecting the food I need for the day. Like that is just what you do. And it was a little bit less of that in Italy, but still quite a bit. And in Spain, it wasn't quite as much. That was something that I really enjoy, but it's also a lot of overhead, right? Like that's not casual. You've got to kind of change your life to be like, this is how it works. We get up in the morning, like my daughter used to apparently used to be like, and let's get everyone moving and let's go out and this beautiful experience, right? Few things do I love more than small French village walking around and getting bread for the day and cheese and whatever, and every single thing is so meticulous. Now, I kind of actually, outside of just the bread and cheese, prefer Spanish food a little bit, but it does wear thin. Spain is a little bit like Nicaragua, that if you're in a smaller village, people eat the same thing every day. So, and now this is all a bit ago, right? I lived in Spain 10 years ago. I spent time in France 13 years ago. Real time. I did Paris since then, but I was a tourist in Paris. So I'm trying to picture life in both and really. I don't know how to put it into words. Maybe if I was there at the time. One thing is, and this is going to sound stupid, to me, France is a morning culture. When I'm in France, I want to get up early and I want to wander the village in the morning. And when I'm in Spain, I don't. I want to sleep in and I want to hang out in the village at night. Does that make sense? I feel like you get the best of France when you're up at 6 and sitting on the veranda and sipping coffee and then going out and getting that fresh bread and cheese and coming back and sitting on the veranda and eating it. And when I'm in Spain, I kind of skip a lot of that. Maybe it's the result of all the cultural things and how it plays out in my mind. But when night comes in France, I often want to maybe go into a basement club and eat dinner or something. But I only want to go so late. And I've spent my day being French. And in Spain, I've kind of saved up all day. And I want to spend my time at night on the terrace, watching the twinkling lights in the distance and sipping wine. I always want to sip wine, like that's universal, but France shifts me to being a morning person, and Spain shifts me to being a night person. And Italy falls in the middle. I do like the getting up and getting going in Italy, but I really love the passeggiata and I love the late food and all that. Overall, I think the differences that I experienced between France and Spain are so much more landscape and climate than anything else. The part of France that I was staying in spoke German. The part of Spain that I was in is very rural. I don't know. I don't know how to compare that. They give me such dramatically different feelings while being very similar in a lot of ways. I'm not quite sure how to separate them. I think if you like one, you're very likely to like the other. As we often notice, like it's Mediterranean life is Mediterranean life. Whether we're in Spain or France or Italy or Croatia, it really it's being Mediterranean tends to be one thing, and being inland tends to be another thing. I think that's a bigger factor. And then language, of course. Which one do you speak? Which one do you like? Rowdy says, how much are you paying a month on electric? So same places. This is so confusing. So prices vary like you wouldn't believe. For the longest time, we lived here for years. We were paying between $80 and $90 per month, with like 85 being the average. And now we're like, it's gone way up. So it's like 650 to 700 now. Did we change? No. As they changed how they measure it. So it did, but that's expected. For the longest time, we're like, this is so low. We're so lucky. And now it's like, oh, this is pretty high. Janet has given us the okay to call it a night if we're wrapping up. So that's important. Thank you, Janet. Good to know. She can't post, but she's listening. My apartment down the street, I talk about this a bit, but if you're not on the live stream, you probably don't hear it. I gave it up. A beautiful apartment that I really like in a nice neighborhood nearby. And it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It reminds you of what I say, typical starter suburban, or not suburban, middle-class Nicaragua home. But it's an apartment rather than a standalone house, but it's designed like a standalone house. So if you've ever seen my videos of Marcela's old house, it was just like that house, but as an apartment. It was a little bit bigger than her house. Hers had a bigger backyard by triple, but the house was smaller. This one, the apartment was bigger, but the yard was very small. And but it was big enough that like the master had a king bed in it, and the secondary bedroom had a queen in it. We put all this in. We put a washing machine in. We put in a full fridge and small kitchenette stuff. We put in a TV and a couch, and it was 2 air conditioning units, but it was small enough that you just open up the bedrooms and run the air conditioners and it would cool off the rest of the house. It was a very comfortable apartment, liked it a lot. When people were using it and using air conditioning and cooling the whole house down with that, $10 a month. I don't know if we ever went over 11. I know Luke has been paying, I think he pays around 15 for his place in Matagalpa. It's really amazing how often you get really cheap electric, but you have to be prepared that sometimes you end up like me now and you're paying $700. When I lived here in 2015, we know they were ripping us off. We were paying $450, and we never ran air conditioning. So it's all over. It depends where you are. What ends up happening is if you get a place that has amazing price on power, you stay until that changes. If you end up in a place that has incredibly high power, you move. If you're living in a place that has incredibly high power, but it's where you want to be, you add solar. We have more people on the show now. Mwah, ha, ha. And my dog is sleeping on the pillow. She's so sweet. Hello. And the little dog is still here too. Both dogs are here. All right. Even though we have more people on, you guys are really quiet. It's really hard to keep things going after 3 1/4 hours without a lot of feedback. And that's okay. if it's a 3 1/4 hour, this has been a good show this week. I'm happy with this. Not happy with how the day went, and I do not like that we had to delay. I was so ready to get started at 5. But let me tell you, the positive thing, nothing's going to make up for what went wrong today, but that the microphone is working again makes me very, very happy. I hope it keeps working and that this is not a temporary thing that is going to break again shortly. I'm very wary. I feel like I need to update the firmware on my Rode X Streamer X, but I'm afraid to even bring up the software that does it for fear that it's who knows what's going to happen. I'm bringing it up now anyway. A new version of the app is available. Okay, but what about the firmware? That's really what I'm interested in. That's probably how we get the new firmware, but maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe that will fix it for the future. We will see. Ooh, we got some hearts. Thank you, whoever sent a heart. While we're discussing whether or not we should be going on to anything, keep in mind that you can support the channel by hitting the join button on here. You can give a thumbs up. That helps. You can also buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller, of course. buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. And don't forget, Marcela's GoFundMe is listed in the show notes, and that does make a huge difference for her and her family. She is working, but she is a single mom and taking care of her kids while being a single mom and going through stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma is very difficult. So going to share the link for anyone who wants to donate to her GoFundMe. She really appreciates all of that. That is the right thing, but I don't know what happened. GoFundMe used to give you a nice short link, and now it gives this crazy one. Okay, there we go. I guess we only need that part. There we go. Oh, we'll click on it, make sure it goes to the right place. It does. Okay. So she definitely appreciates. And thank you so much. I know Luke disappeared, but she is so excited. 2 weeks ago on the show, the last live that we did, someone brought up the idea of, well, if she's so bored and has to do all this time waiting in hospitals, she needs a Kindle. And it was amazing that someone thought of that, because when the first GoFundMe that ended up failing and all that money was not lost, but returned to people, her hope was she was going to use some of that money to buy herself a Kindle. It was the one thing she was going to buy for herself because, for exactly those reasons, she needed a place to be able to read things. And then that money all vanished or went back to the people who had donated it, thanks to GoFundMe being stupid. And that was a huge problem. So she didn't get to do that. She had to give up on that. And then 2 weeks ago, they said, well, we need to get her something. And Luke just went out and bought her an Amazon Kindle, Paperwhite, right on the show. And is like, it's been ordered. It has been shipped. Luke and I use the same shipping company. So he just called them and is like, hey, this is coming to Scott for, and I just called them and said, Marcela's going to come pick it up. And they know her and they know me. And so Luke just sent it to her, and she's had it in her hands for several days now. And hopefully we'll be here tomorrow after her radiation therapy tomorrow, and we will get it set up, and she'll be able to use that to read lots of books. And she's very excited because she has never seen anything like a Kindle in person before. Now, I mean, she has one now, but before that, she's like, what is a Kindle? And I had to show her and explain it. And she's like, because she's a big reader. I'm not a big reader. I love Kindles, but I have no reason to have one. But for her, it's this really big deal of being able to, although now that I think about it, because I do a lot of writing with my kids, or starting to, I may want to get one for myself. I'm always looking for an excuse to get myself a Kindle. Why could I need a Kindle? Because I used to have a Kindle, and it's probably in storage, but it's the original version, and it just had this beautiful faux leather cover in orange that I loved, right, in tangerine, and I just loved carrying around a Kindle. It makes me want to read. You know, some people, a lot of people, and I totally understand, love paper books. And sometimes I love paper books. And I've read a lot of books, right? I've had the biggest library of anyone I've ever known. I spent so much time reading, and I really appreciate the value of paper. But my wife will tell you I am so meticulous with my books that it makes it difficult for me to really read them because I'm being so careful. I don't want to get them dirty. I don't want to bend a corner. I don't want to break the spine. I like them to look pristine on the shelf for whatever reason. And autism is the reason. And so I don't want to casually read a book. And when I have a Kindle, it makes me want to read a book. It makes me want to hold it. It makes me want to have an excuse to go spend time with it. I don't know. Most people are like, I love paper. I want the smell of paper, the feel of paper, the experience of paper, which I get it. But for me, I get that same response from the Kindles. And so having one it just makes me happy, even though I don't have anything to read. But it just occurred to me that a lot of the material that my kids and I are working on for a lot of things I could put onto a Kindle, and that would be a spot for me to engage on that and really enjoy it. It doesn't really justify getting a Kindle, but it's the start of a good excuse, which is sometimes all you need. Rowdy says, is there any good dentist places in LEòN, or do you think Managua? You definitely want to come to LEòN. We talked about it earlier. I actually have a dentist who's fantastic, and I want to put her on the show. And she wants to do the live stream. We just have not been able to coordinate it because Marcela is the coordinator of those things, and she has not had a chance to be able to do that yet. But it is the plan that we're going to get her onto the show, and we're going to be able to. It's going to be really cool when she does it, and we'll be able to do a live question and answer kind of thing. Yeah, but I think LEòN is actually the place to go for dentistry. Anyone I know who goes somewhere else ends up with, oh, that didn't end up like I wanted. Yeah, so yeah, LEòN definitely. And much cheaper. But everyone I know, the care here is just fantastic. I'm actually really looking forward to getting to play with Marcela's Kindle because I have not seen a Paperwhite. Mine was a regular one, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had an original. Maybe my wife had a first generation Paperwhite. I don't know where hers went. But I just love the backlight. I love being able to read at night. I'm really just coming up with an excuse now to have a reason to need one. I am really surprised that my wife doesn't have one now because she reads so voraciously that it's like, it just makes sense. And she doesn't need anything special. She just needs the smallest Paperwhite with the, black and white, doesn't need color for any reason. And like, I can't think of why I would need color. Like, doesn't that detract for most things? I mean, if you're going to read like travel books or something, sure, but I do like that it's color soft. Like I could see, but I just don't know what material would be good that way. I kind of want a Kindle in raspberry. I also wonder if the ad-supported version works in Nicaragua. Like, what ads does it show? I'm sure it shows something, but like, what does it show? Who's paying to send ads to Nicaragua? Like, okay. All right, you guys have gotten pretty quiet. We've got a few people have left. It has over it's at 3.5 hours. So let's call it a night. And remember, so first of all, thank you everyone for being on. It really does mean a lot. I love having you guys on. Love doing the live show. Glad we were able to get back to it this week after having to take last week off. For last week was my wife's birthday. We went to Managua and hung out with the family. and did some going out to eat and some stuff, and that was cool. But had to do it on a Thursday, so we missed doing the live stream. So yeah. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining. And if you haven't watched today's video, go watch that. And if you think of any questions, if you could make video questions, love getting video questions to respond to people. That is really cool. So if you can do that and send them in, the instructions are all in the show notes how to do that. And then I can put you on the show, and it makes it so much easier to get a couple episodes out. It's a big sorry, get weird emails that I got. It really makes it easier to do the show. Oh, a couple of extra people just joined. Sorry for the people who are just joining. Unless you have questions, you can get up real quick. We are just signing off. It's been 3.5 hours. It was kind of a dramatic day, but we had a good show. Really appreciate everyone. Remember to give us that thumbs up. Remember to hit the GoFundMe if you can handle it. If you can spare anything, definitely don't put yourself out. But if you have the money to spare, it means a lot. To Marcela, and thank you so much for joining us. So I will see all of